you call. So I pray every day more than anything, friends will stay to keep it insulated. This foundation for a family. Love ain't simple. Why can't it be anything that happens? You work at annually. Granted, we know each other for some time. It don't take the whole day to recognize sunshine. Yeah. Second, it's kind of fresh. You listen to more than hip hop. I can catch you in the mix. Beauty, the flip shot. Plus, you shit out with the sign. Too quick to be pressed. Testing these types of rhymes. Too many times, but I'm lost. I got to find. You know to give me space when it's time to. My heart's dictionary to find you. It's love and happiness. Truthfully, it's hard trying to fight sadness. The time we committed love it was still good. It had to be for me to rise, and it still feels good. I know the sex ain't gonna keep you, but that's my ego. It's how I must treat you. That's my reflection of life. I'ma need you, and whatever's right, I'ma please you. You guys, you guys, you guys, you guys. Yo, I tell you what, I gotta see you. All I want to know, just keep hiding. Girl, you're so good. I want to good.
Kitty now. My resume running up to millennium. I'm better with a mega waves, not the pinning now. I'm better get a moderate
Who keeps bringing more? I've had too many. This Virginia done me up already. I'm done for real. I might just say how I feel. I'm done for real. I might just say how I feel. Don't switch on me. I got big plans. We need to fall to the islands and get you on those straight times. I need you to stop pulling back her hair. She's a waste man. I wanna know how come we can never splash and stay friends. I'm done for real. I might just say how I feel. I'm done for real. I might just say how I feel. I know what I like. I know how I wanna live my life. I don't need no advice. You're not here, we both know I love. Move for me when you're extra. Move for me with the pasta. I'm building up a house where there is me. You move for me, I know, baby. You don't switch on me, I got big plans. We need to fall to the island and get you go to the island. I need you to stop putting back to your exes, always friends. I wanna know how come we can never splash and stay friends. I'm been for real, I might just say how I feel. I'm been for real, I might just say how I feel. I know we can't keep it together forever. But you're crazy sometimes, and I only see you sometimes. Move for me when you're extra. Move for me with the pasta. I'm building a house where they raise me. You move with me, I go look. Just don't switch on me. I got big plans. We need to fall to the islands and get you on those straight times. I need to stop pulling back to your ex. She's always trying. I wanna know how come we can never stand and stay friends. I'm been for real. I might just say how I feel. I'm been for real. I might just say how I feel. I feel. I feel. Let me see how many palms go up high and feel above the world as the play high. Make your way from side to side, symbolizing the help from the sand with the queen. Big mama with the devils of the holy mother of the wicked millions on a Sunday for good. For I call the killing on a Monday for good. Go ahead and make a part of the campaign. Grip champagne. Me myself placing it on the shoulders and giving my all like heavy lifting. No game without tears and sweat. They claim from the sky the white clouds that he drifting. They come to get you, and you like you know that it's time to get you. You what you got to do. Open to the story, brother. Come on, to the next thing. I am what you say. Roll like a phone, let roll back. Slow pain, no game, don't care. Change like the weather. Started as a watch, long as the together. Flames up and down. I'm gonna find out that name is it better. Anything's it better. Shades of a fool. Good lady to me. Move so different. Move so swift. Easy to my style. Lay mine down. King me crown. Nothing me mad. Teach me my class. I'm last. Shoot the game gun. To let it play. She's not cash. She's not on the motivation. I never meet you. I knew her the relations. It's so good, babe. I saw it. I'm gonna make it. Ain't gonna make it better. Boys, girl, listen to me. I'm from Oakland, California. Baby, they say that I see the light, but it's you that I like. Now spend the night in your town, baby. Boy, girl, you told me your name, and I never been the same. Girl, I love the way you carry yourself. You kinda ghetto, but yet sexy. That's just the way it works for me. Yeah, I get your myself. Yeah, I want you to do me. Yeah, I want to set you up. Make you happy. I'm loving your taste and that chain around your waist. You know, girl, I love the way you turn it on. That's why I'm writing this song because I'm loving your style, baby. Now these yours, girl, when you come to my town, I would love to show you all to my way. Doing what they might say when they meet you, they might say something, but they don't know. When you come to my town, I would love to show you all to my way. I know what they might say when they meet you, they might say something, like they don't know. Oh, LA represent and Detroit, in Chicago, Oklahoma, New Orleans, Virginia, Texas, Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, everybody, North Carolina, everybody, New York, New York City, Thank you guys so much for being really appreciate it. We just, if you would, you can make a neighbor, you can mingle. This is 50 and really excited to get to really stand for survivors in this way. And to just have conversations around what it will look like to really change the conversation. The fact that 11,000 rape kits went untested for since 1984, and it took Kim Worthy to discover them in 2009 for something to finally happen. That is rape culture. The fact that things can happen to women's bodies, and most of the population that were affected were Black women, and nobody do anything about it. That is it right there. So our discussion, I'm really looking forward to open micers. We have a few who are present in the building right now. Shout out to Azara. We're definitely looking forward to hearing from her. But I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So please enjoy the sounds of DJ Equad, mingle, talk amongst yourselves, just if you can with friends, meet a new friend. There's cookies in the back that are all for you. If you'd like to leave a donation for pop or water or chips, those are all $1 each. And they help the Sasha Center and our organization of Pure Movement. So just enjoy, and we'll be with you at 7 o'clock. Dressed in that dress up, love is swinging in the air tonight. Let me show you a good thing. Let me show you a good thing. Show you a good thing. Let me show you a good thing. Show you a good time to let go.
Check it out, you got classical vibes. The black kid, the fat style. Street poetry is my everyday. But you would not stop me, drop away. If I was looking at the cover, would not pick. You don't want me to fight, nigga, you got something to say. I like a brown, yellow, Puerto Rican, that hell shit. It's like the war, I'm a Zulu nation. Keep it in the jam, that we can be dinner. Now that's not the roof, like the roof H town. You got me, on the bedroom wall. But I'm up the rim, and this is how I ball. A pretty little something on that New York street. This is how I relate over this that beat. Talking about you. Yo, I took you out. The seconds on my own and round. When I was in the prison, in the state. But I didn't drop down, because you couldn't relate. You can't relate. You can't relate. Stretch out your legs and they make you fall. Drop it insane, drop it up the wall. Staring at your piece very strong. Stronger than pride, stronger than Teflon. Take it on the air and your body links down the run about you. Until it stinks. You can be my mama and I'll be your boy. I ain't your road boy, now I'm my coy. You can be a shorty in my ill convoy. Not to come across as a clever or hood. But like that, like that, like what? By the way, my name's Lee. I'm pop free. They say we get together by the end of the week. She said, no, label me up. I said, how you figure? My friends tell me so. I ain't the silly dude you wanna run me up. Working hard, I hold you down like that. I'll have to make it easy. We can hard speak, or we can do it forever, swinging after my cheek. Keep it on the channel, we keep it discreet. See, I'm about to take a kid to have my biz in the streets. If I'm on the proof, then I'll just be low. Let me take a little man, come inside the boat. Let me hit it from the back, but I won't get to hurry up. Hustle up when you're down, try you got seat furniture. Shaggy fight for the extra beat. Stacy Beetle, PJ, and my man LG. They know the abstract really so on ice. The character is a man, never ever on mice. Shorty, let me tell you about my own advice. That has to do with lots of love and it ain't nothing nice. Don't even worry about it.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Who says all right, all right, all right? Kevin Hart. All right, all right, all right. Y'all give it up, please, for DJ Equad. Definitely for all our speakers who are in the house and all of the micers. And so I just want to start with a little bit of history about what Denim Day is. A few people are familiar with Denim Day. If you know what Denim Day is, go ahead, raise your hand. Okay, nice. So for those who don't know the history of how Denim Day started, years ago, a young girl, a young Italian girl was excited, 16 years old, and she is amped up, turned up, fired up. She gonna get her driver's license out here in these streets. So she's with her driver instructor. She takes the road test. She does well. He tells her she passes. She's excited. He directs her to pull to a remote area in which he proceeds to rape her. She's brave enough to tell her parents. Her parents go the distance and have him prosecuted, and it's six, and he is convicted of the crime of rape. He decided that maybe there was some sort of loophole, so he takes his case to the Supreme Court. Takes his case to the Supreme Court and explains that she had on very tight jeans. If she had on tight jeans, she had to assist him in taking the jeans off in order for him to be able to have sex with her and thereby making it consensual. That is not consensual, but the Supreme Court said it was, and he walked off without any consequences. The next day, Parliament was infuriated, and the women decided that they were going to wear their denim, and they wore their denim for a consecutive amount of days. And then it went from Italy to different parts of Europe, and then eventually made its way to different parts of the United States. A few years ago, in 2013, years back, as a woman, a lot of times people don't see my art, people see my gender for whatever it is that I do. The first thing they see my gender, they don't say, oh, I see your gender and that's dope. They see my gender and they come with their own assumptions and underestimations. And that happened to me years ago. And I was mad about it. And I feel like God put it on my heart to do an album just for women.
And I was like, no, I'm tired of being identified by gender. I'm not doing it. That's dumb. Right? I told my producer, and he's like, no, that's not dumb. That's exactly what you should do. And I said, well, I can't tell the story about women without other women. I can't tell the story about women without men. And so we proceeded to make what was a 3 volumes album, and this was the first that came out. And we just wanted to address issues that people normally sweep under the rug when it comes to women. And one of those issues affects me dearly, not me personally, but definitely in regards to friends that I have. My best friend, Jane Marie, who's also my co-director for what is now our nonprofit organization, A Pure Movement. I just want to give her a round of applause. So we had many, we call them, what do we call them? The parking lot ministry. So our parking lot ministry would be us in the car just talking. And she said, well, Sharice, you know it's cool? Yes, Sharice. I'm laughing. Sharice, this album is cool. You're making this music, but what happens after the music, right? She's like, it has to be a movement. In order for it to be a movement, it has to have moving parts. And we was like, oh, okay. And so we got to figuring out what those parts were. So we did a series of PSAs for women. We did a series of social media campaigns. We did a campaign, our first one, which was called Not Less Than, and we have the shirts in the back. But when Sexual Assault Awareness Month came, which was April, and you discovered it because she actually designed a magazine, we decided that we needed to do an event and we needed to get people in a room talking and we needed to get people outside thinking about how we handle and how we treat women. And then in her discovery and her rabbit trail, I probably should pass it off to her, but we'll wait. Long story short, we decided that everywhere else had Denim Day, and Detroit needed a Denim Day because it's very important. We want to represent, we want to end victim blaming, and so we needed one. And so Jane decided to bring Detroit Denim Day here to Detroit, and it was the first Denim Day that Detroit ever had in 2014, and here we are 5 years later. And so we'll share a little bit more about Pure Movement as an organization. And we won't belabor the moment, but thank you all for being in your fly dinner. Stand up if you in your dinner. Yeah. Yes, Papa collars on them looking cute and stuff. And so we just want to, we're going to have in and outs, we're going to have some discussion moments and we're going to have some open mic. And so I think I want us to set it off with this open mic portion so we can be encouraged. And I've had the grace of so many beautiful artists who I love and know and admire who decided that they were down to share their hearts and their art. And so the first person that I want to invite up, we were at another event for women. So I think she's super dope. We just met. She's very talented and super gifted, and her voice is sick. And she has an open mic that she does on Mondays. What's the series?
Well, it's Fridays now, Jazz at Java.
Jazz at Java. So you guys put your hands together and your hearts together. Lots of love for Carmen.
I guess we don't need a mic. It's so small in here. It's cool. It's nice and intimate. My name is Carmen Diaz. I go by the stage name Miss Carmen. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Yes Miss Carmen. So everybody say Yes Miss Carmen. Yes. Thank you. Please follow me. All right. So I was leaving an abusive relationship. I was married I would have been 12 years abusive, and I finally was able to break out that shell and just kind of finally be me and be who I need to be. So these next couple of pieces I'm gonna do is just about this like new person, this liberated person that's finally up from under all that bondage. As I expound upon this lyrical theory, I am repeatedly introduced to a new level of me. Who am I to deny this energy flowing through my veins? You thought you knew me once, but I am not the same. I am a new me, miscalculated, unpredictable, uncontrolled. I found my soul, perhaps my destiny. This is a new story that I'm writing. I dare you to be free. Get like me, be who you wanna be. Who's to call? Who's to blame? Judging me, you've gone insane. Cause I'm on the precipice of greatness, 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 greatness lives in me. That's that one. It's called Truly Free. Here I am, yes I am, yes indeed. Who I be, finally me, finally free. I can breathe. No longer stifled by your negativity, held back by all your motherfucking insecurities. Free indeed, free at last. I warned you I'd be a vision of your past. I warned you that slick talk grip on me wouldn't last. But you got pumped up, you drunk that Henny, and got way too confident too fast. You saw fellowshipping with your friends as conspiring with the enemy. You clocked my every movement, told me when and where and how to be. Convinced my poor weak soul that I was fat, stupid, and ugly. Told me my own mama don't want me. But now, like a phoenix, I rise and fly free. Once blind, now I can see all of life's infinite possibilities. Daring to be all of me, not just what I'm allowed to be. The loud me, the proud me, the strong me, the so what if I get it wrong me, the not stepping on the scale every day me, the not worried about my hair me, the never apologizing for my constant affirmation and always yay me, the walking away from anybody that ever said fuck me. Finally free. So this next loud is one more and I'm out of here. I was like not a songwriter. I swear I wasn't. And then I see Mahogany somewhere and I'm telling you this, she wasn't even talking to me. That's the funny part. She was talking to somebody else, telling them, you need to write, you need to get on every mic. And I was like, you know what, Carmen, you need to write, you need to get on every mic. I was like ear hustling, like, and so I went home and I've been writing ever since. You just have no idea how much your energy just inspired me. So this one is like my first single. I got a producer, Mr. Melodic, and we just making some beautiful things together, man. It's the first of many. I'm working on an album, well, an EP called Yes, Miss Carmen, and this is the first one. It's called I'm Here, because I'm here. See, I'm finally at the station, headed to my next destination, an elevation type situation. They already knew. So let's go. You try to drag me deep, way deep down low, but that was where my soul refused to go. This energy you could not contain, but you had a grip and you let it slip. Yes, I was to blame, but I can't move forward, stuck here right in my brain. And trying to explain a misfit makes me insane. Cause if I am truly a new, then without a doubt, I got to let it go, go. Cause this girl's on fire, this girl's got juice, this girl's gonna make it, and I know you knew. Cause when I found out, my mind was gone, meant to be great, and you knew it all along. This girl's on fire, I'm on the loose. I can't take it, can't handle the truth. I'm about to take off, I'm lower in this land. Deeply rooted, here I stand. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. You try to limit me, but he broke the chains. The picture's clear, yes, the reception's changed. A tragedy, but my life's been reclaimed. Yes, I caught a glimpse of his fullness, never be the same. Cause I can't move forward, stuck here right in my brain. And trying to explain the misfit makes me insane. Cause if I am truly a new, then without a I got to let it go, go. 'Cause this girl's on fire, this girl's got juice, this girl's gonna make it, and I know you know. 'Cause when I found out, my mind was blown. Meant to be great, and you knew it all along. This girl's on fire, I'm on the loose. My can't handle the truth. I'm about to take off, following his plan. Deeply rooted, here I stand. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, 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 I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, so where can we follow you on social media?
Yes, Miss Carmen on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter.
Okay.
Yes, Miss
All
Carmen.
right.
Yes.
And when is that EP gonna be ready? When is that EP gonna be ready?
We're working on the 3 tracks.
Yeah, you're fire. You're not the dust stuff. That was awesome. Let's give her a good time. So this next artist I would like to introduce is also a curator of events. She is just a beautiful spirit, a beautiful soul, a wonderful woman of God, and she happens to also host her own events as well. And yeah, we've been friends for a really long time, and I just always appreciate everything she has to contribute. And she's like super encouraging and full of fire. So please give it up for Natasha, beautiful soul.
My name is Natasha Beautiful Talk. Just like my tablet power up. I have brought my son with me. I'm very real with him about a lot of things. And sometimes he's got to come where I come. And, he's getting ready to be a teenager, and we need to educate our men, our young men, just as well, so that they know to stay. I told him I wasn't ready, and then I started talking. Yeah. Well, I didn't need the mic. I didn't need the mic. But it's a delight, to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And always wherever Mahogany goes, I just love support. I know it's something positive. So I thank you all for listening to me before listening. She was so very elusive. I saw her. Looking at me, I was so young and naive, pretty became not enough. Not sure I could have recognized her. Others tried to tell me, so I thought I would know. There were so many stories based on each person's perspective and encounter. I was watching TV most often when I caught glimpses of her. And these were I pictured as the description. My daddy tried to tell me, and even my mom, but I didn't listen. You know how kids are. They don't listen. Often inconsistent, but she was persistent. Pleading with me not to forget her, eluding my mind often, I tried to spend time catching up to find her. I even looked in the mirror once, but she was so hard to catch. Wasn't I worthy of this pretty that everybody seemed to know but me? It seemed like traces of her remained in every woman I could see but me. I completely had no idea why she didn't choose me, so I began to create my own reality. I imagined that all men found me desirable and okay. I started to try to look my best, or rather what I thought she looked like. See, praying didn't matter. I wasn't sure what to pray for, so I sought validation in department store clothes and nails. I mean, I was seeking attention in ways that many times caught up with me because at 18, secretly began to be told I was so naive and could be misled. And later, I realized they were right. Yeah, I grew up in the church, but believe you me, I wasn't always a saint. That I was covered by God's grace. He gave me time and space. I said, you're looking at the results of unconditional love. He forgave me. And I've since learned that there was a queen in me. And I too had to forgive her for looking for vanity instead of spiritual beauty. Queen, I told her, I forgive you for the mistakes that you've made, for the many times you didn't listen and cost us both pain, for telling lies in your favor, for gossiping about your friend, breaking his heart and his, and yelling and talking down to others, not humbling yourself in front of your mother, drinking alcohol like you did as if you needed to get drunk every weekend, because you did. You did. But not saying thank you or please when others went out of their way, you acted like somebody owed you something. For all the cuss words you thought I could never say. Acting spoiled and ungrateful when you didn't get your way as if somebody owed you something. For not being strong enough. For not spending enough time with your kids. Sabotaging a good relationship out of fear, fearing your success because you have never ever been there, spending your last on clothes when it should have been on heels, building a wall in super tough skin, not letting anything out or anything in, for allowing that wall to be knocked down with no apprehension. At times, you stepped out of your faith. You became impatient in finding others late, even though it was a general curse that you continued to maintain, for letting that consequence of sin allow you to feel as if you could no longer be complete, for expecting that man to be your husband when you weren't even ready to be a wife, for expecting respect when you didn't even give it to yourself. Queen, forgive me for everything. I promise to protect you. Much more than I ever did, the best that I can, and know how I love you more than I ever did before. But before I end this love letter, there's something else that I must say. And yes, I'm sorry. I will never ever hurt you like that again. Because this is a love letter from your heart to your soul. Please forgive yourself.
Nobody coming up in here talking about me at my event. Number one. And number two, that was fire. Okay, your second piece of fire.
So I changed it up so a lot of it's my story, but I can remember when my son was in daycare, Head Start, daycare, like 5 years old or something, maybe younger than that, and I sat in the car in the parking lot outside, what's that center? Oh, in Oakland Boulevard, Focus Hope, right outside the Focus Hope Child Care Center. I sat in that car and I wrote that piece. I read it on the voice, the voice thing, and listened to it and just, I recited it for the first time and wept. Like all these things that were very, that I looked at myself like it was something wrong with me because of all the negative things that I did or I felt that I did. And I forgave myself right there in that moment. So this piece continues to carry on. Like I said, he's 12 years old, and so I hope it, gives you that freedom to forgive yourself or whatever, and other people won't let you forget it, and they won't forget it. And so that just leads right into my next piece. The Japanese have a word, it's called wabi sabi, and it's the art of embracing what's flawed because there is beauty in the flaw. So rather than disguising cracks, Fuji restores a broken object back even better than the original. It includes the damage into the aesthetic of the broken and restored item, making it a part of the object's history. Fuji. It uses powdered gold, silver, bronze, platinum. It fills in the cracks, resulting in something much more beautiful than it ever was. Fuji. Blood runs through my veins. Gold runs through my mane, down my neck, across my back, and deep within my heart. I am not broken. I was. But I am mended by the golden stitch of time that heals all wounds, sewed me up when I thought that my heart was breaking. I am mended. I thought I would remain broken. My heart was broken. My heart broke into the golden pieces you see now. It is precious metal. No alloy in it. The real thing was evidenced by time. See, time heals all wounds. While love was the thread, God's love was the red to close the gap where bitterness once was. Every pain was evidence of where I've been. And every glimmer you see, every shimmer is where I once was, made new, shining like the light that is in me. That I was once searching for. I am she, I am we, they, he, after polishing revealed. Personified by the very gold that fixed the mold that was broken. I am salvaged. The pieces that were torn have now become one, helped them all become one. I was broken. I am corroded. I am excellence reinvented. I am whole. Thank you. I am Natasha Beautiful Thought. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. You can connect with me on my website, mybeautifulthoughts.net, because they're mine. They're mybeautifulthoughts.net. And I have some business cards on you out as well. So hope to connect with you at some of my events as well.
All right, y'all, give it up for Natasha Beautiful Thought one more time. All right. So I want to get into the meat and potatoes of things. So we all know we started, it was 11,304, correct? Our first Denim Day, Detroiters came from everywhere. We partnered with Boma Rica, shout out to Consuelo who's in the building. And we partnered with Pepper Carter's, the foundation. So shout out to Pepper Carter who's in the building at the moment. And it's been awesome, love of labor. We've done many of these together. And we together, people took out $5, $1 here, $1 there, and we raised enough for one rape kit. We were proud, right? And Enough Said, we also partnered with Enough Said, and they were doing great work behind the scenes. They were reaching out to mom and pop shops to raise money to get this work done. And they were also reaching out to people with deep pockets to get this work done. Flash forward, a group of women came together called the African American 490 Challenge because laws were put in place that first year that we did it to actually get the price reduced because I think it was almost like $1,000.
It was
Nine what?
no, it was over $1,000 to get one done.
It was
Over
over.
about 1,200 to get one done, and we raised half of that, which is how we're able because they. Hi guys. So the first year it was like about $1,200 to get a rape kit process. And so everybody, like you said, was giving their singles and their fives, and we were like, okay, well, we got halfway there. We're gonna keep pushing. They said, no, don't worry. You made enough because we just worked out this deal where we are now working with 2 different labs, and they cut the price by half. Wow. And so we were able to get the first rape kit process, and then after that, literally we were working on this PSA we were going to put out, and we were like, okay, we're watching the clips. And I think like 2 days after Denim Day, which by the way, we had the prosecutor's office was a supporter and worked with us on Denim Day as well. I guess we were supporting them as well. So they showed up, and about 2 days after that, state legislation, they passed this law. Governor Snyder at the time, when he was smart enough to actually pass to sign this thing, and so it is now illegal to have rape kits sit, and the backlogs are illegal. So yeah, so that was really great.
And so that's where we started 5 years ago, really 2009. And so flash forward, there everybody say zero unprocessed rape kits 5 years later. So how about Detroit? A lot of people think that the backlog is solely a Detroit thing, and it's nationwide. And there are other cities that are still struggling with backlog. And I'm just proud that that blue collar spirit, that gangster, we not about that life. Don't try us spirit rose up, and we got this work done together. And so that leads me, I want to introduce, like I said, my co-founder, and I'd like her to share a piece that she wrote. This was for our 2nd annual Denim Day that happened at the International Institute. And then after that, I want to introduce the fruit of labor, because it's one thing to get the kits processed, but it doesn't mean anything if the violators aren't prosecuted. And so I just love the synchronicity of life, and I'll let my sister tell that story. But we're going to hear a testimonial after we hear this piece from Jane Marie Smith. So please give it up for Jane Marie.
Thank you all. I wrote this, like she said, for the 2nd Denim Day in Detroit, when I was not here because I was in California in film school at the time. So, but I'm glad I can actually share this with you guys in person. And I'm not allowed to speak. Yeah, my voice doesn't carry out my She rose. She picked herself up from where she had been discarded, and she rose with one thought in her mind. She rose and placed her broken body in the doorway, in the pathway, to keep others from ever having to go that way. She rose to face a villain. She rose to stop all victims from ever being victimized again. She rose. That's what they are. Mm-hmm. Not victims, not survivors, not even former sex trafficked slaves. These women are sheroes, heroes in violated clothing, willing to endure the most grueling, humiliating day of their examinations, hours into hours, into half day, into daylight lane. Pictures of her raped body over and over, swabs from private parts, torn apart, now splayed apart,
for care providers to carefully pick at parts her mama told her never to show. Her first gynecological exam, full body, full cavity, full ears ringing, with promises that one day he will have to do this. Split his bare cheeks for officers to see before donning state branded attire. She became a public defender with her own private parts. Yes, she knows. She doesn't feel like a hero, but she knows. She brought peace to the neighborhood again. She brought sleep to traumatized children. She brought straight safety in the form of justice. Just let us touch what he touched just moments before. Just put your ransacked body in the door and block his escape. Block all other women from this fate. She's a hero with no cape and a gaping hospital gown, doing what others will hurt too badly to do. Now it's up to you. Today is the day to recognize that day, that long examination day. This is your examination day with only one question on the test. Will you say yes? To pick up the remnants of her discarded body and give her peace of mind, risking her rising like her to end rape one kid at a time. She's a hero. No longer should she have to bear his crime. The days of justice being denied have gone on too long. Look to your left, she rose. Look to your right. You are not alone in this fight. Your Justice League, your super friends, your Avengers are finally by your side. Loud manner personalities aside, no longer will we hide from your truth. We saw your sign up in the sky, and now we know a hero, and we know a hero rose to try. And so now we rise for you.
Give it up for Jay Marie Smith. This work is so important because it's not just kids. I think we hear numbers, we hear kids, and we don't think faces, we don't think lives, we don't think real stories. I don't know what you know. I don't know if anybody knows what it feels like to be falsely accused of something, and for years for nobody to believe you. But I know that this woman does. And so I just want to invite up my good friend, my good sister, Michelle, to come up and to share her testimony of being a recipient of one of the first 1,000 kits that was tested and on the road to justice. So if we can give it up to Michelle.
Hi, it's Norma Michelle. But 23 years ago, I was at a friend's house where I thought I would be safe, and she had company. And I had left, went out, came back, and she had two guys over. The one who raped me was her boyfriend, of hers that she was dating, and his friend. So when I got back from where I went, I come in, and my friend was face down on her stomach with her pants to her ankles. So I'm trying to stay calm, get out. Because I'm like, okay, I gotta get out, get some help, come back. So when I was trying to leave, they blocked the door for me to get out. So the friend held me down and her boyfriend raped me. So after I got away, I called another friend, took me to the hospital to get the rape kit and everything. And after that, the friend who stayed there was telling people I was lying. And then I was just ashamed. And I'm like totally confused. Like if I was ashamed, I would have went through all that. But anyone to even know what happened, So anyway, over the years, I've developed an anger that was ridiculous. My kids suffered, my mother suffered, siblings suffered because I was just mad all the time. I sabotaged my own relationships because I just felt dirty. So going through the years, my character was slandered. I met Mahogany about 9 years ago. But she ended up being my prayer partner. I was just like really afraid of the anger that I was holding in. So through the years we would pray and everything, and I would share with her things that happened to me, not knowing that she would be involved with a movement that helped me get justice. But I'm really honored that he was able to help me get stronger in Christ and trust him. And 23 years later, I got a card in my door from the detective that told me they caught the guy. When she told me that they caught this man, I felt a load lift off my shoulder. Okay, God really do have interest for me. I was like, it took forever, but hey, it's all good because it was right on time. The girl who lied on me and slandered my character moved back from Oklahoma, around the block from me. See how good God is? I didn't have to go look for nobody to tell to go to court and everything. He said everybody in my life. And I'm like, wow, how ironic. But God is good. So tomorrow, he hopefully will take his plea deal because he can't run from the truth. And the first my court date is the first. And I will have this. So I really appreciate this movement because it really helps strengthen women like me. And finally, I'm heard. I'm heard today. And I appreciate it.
So I want to just share with you what the current status are and like why this is important again. So she is actually one. So here we go. Current status. Of course, 11,000 have been tested. 127 convictions. And so we hear that number and we think, oh, 127 women got justice, not understanding that rape is usually a serial situation. So it's usually about 8 bodies attached to one rapist. So you want to possibly multiply that 127 convictions to 8 bodies and maybe even more bodies because you think, what I heard in Michelle's story, which is why a lot of women never want to share that these things happen. And a lot of men, we don't talk about the men, is the shame that washes over you. The repercussions, the stress disorders that take you over. You don't want to say anything because you're not believed. So it's like you're victimized so many times over and over again. So 127 convictions, 1,947 cases investigated, 817 serial rapists identified. That is good work, and that is scary work. And that leads me to transition into this next conversation that will involve, thank you so much to Consuela for inviting different representatives of law enforcement here. So at this time, I'd like to bring up your name again, sir? Sergeant Bolden. Bolden. If you can come up, Sergeant Bolden, and tell me your name. Yes, Melissa Novak with Wayne County Safe. If she could come up, please. Thank you, guys. All right. So pardon me, I love technology. Here we go. So I want to ask you legally, what is sexual assault? Now I looked it up and there's 14 different manifestations of sexual assault. I don't know if you know all 14 of those off your head. So if you want me to just share it and then if you can speak to what sexual assault is that better? Are you good?
I'll just briefly take you guys through sort of how we explain it, how we explain to our recruits when we contact. Okay, so it's going to talk about the force, the age, the differences between the victim and the offender, and whether or not there was penetration. And there's also we also handle it like our indecent exposures and things of that nature as well.
Okay, so now I want to specifically speak to how it was broken down. Rape. So rape is a type of sexual assault involving penetration of any orifice in the body, vaginal, anal, oral, without consent. Rape can be and is often thought of as an act of physical force, but force does not have to happen to constitute rape. If one party is unable to physically or mentally consent to sex or is threatened with force, coercion, that too is considered rape. And so there's that gray area where we're talking about rape culture. We're going to get in that open forum conversation where, half of the songs talk about blame it on the alcohol, right? And the drugs that are involved with, Mickey's and the culture that just kind of condones that kind of behavior, that gray space, right? So we have rape, we have sexual coercion. I'll briefly share my story, and this is another great area that I think again speaks to rape culture. I remember it was the summer of my 13th birthday. And you watch your movies and you see what boyfriends and girlfriends are supposed to do, and you think, oh, that's what's supposed to happen. You kiss your boyfriend, or your boyfriend is supposed to have certain parts of your body. That's just how it works. And I remember getting my first boyfriend and being so excited and just wanting to be liked. And I remember the conversation that I had, not with the guy who was my boyfriend, but his friend. Like, well, yeah, if you really want to take the relationship to the next level and you really want to be, his girlfriend, and you want to be down, you just gonna, you should just let him, take your virginity. Like, that's just what should happen. And I remember knowing it was wrong, but feeling like as if I couldn't get the no out. Right. And that same year, I Want to Sex You Up was the big song on the radio. And it was odd because that was the song that was playing when it was happening. And it was funny because years later, he reached out to me via Facebook and he apologized for what happened and said that he was coerced as well and did not want to do that. But his friends were like, yeah, man, if you're trying to be a man, that's what you got to do. Right. So here, both of us doing this thing that we don't want to do, that we have no idea of the repercussions of, but that culture, right? So I think sexual coercion also speaks to the whole idea of, man, she wants it. That thing that guys are told, right? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off, but sexual coercion, drug facilitated sexual assault, sexual harassment, stalking, groping, intimate partner violence, child sexual abuse, incest, elderly sexual assault, prisoner rape. So that's another thing, right? That goes under the radar. That's not dealt with, and that our men probably struggle with, right? Multi-perpetrator sexual assault. And so those are all the different forms. And so if perhaps you can speak to, and both of you can speak to, any of those things happen to me, what do I do? Whether it's molestation or any of those forms, what happens next? How do I help?
Biggest thing is that we want to make us aware of the situation as soon as it happens. A lot of times these things go unreported, and as time goes on, we lose evidence. And you just want to. It looks better. I say it looks better to if this thing goes to trial, you have a jury. It looks better if it was reported immediately as opposed to if there was a gap in between. And that's just what it is, because you have to convince a set of jurors. And we at our unit. I'm working at Detroit Police Sex Crimes, and I'm part of the Special Victims Umbrella. So we're a victim-centric unit, meaning that we don't operate in the same way that other units might. We don't force. We're not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do or you're not comfortable with. But at the same token, it's very imperative that we're made aware of these things as soon as they happen. One, so we can make the best case possible with this victim, but also so that we don't have other victims. And you spoke to something when you said about the red kits and identifying people. And one thing that I think is lost in that conversation is that even when we submit these red kits and we don't get it, we don't get a hit. Now that DNA is part of the system. So down the line, this person may commit another felony that's not a sexual assault, maybe a robbery or something. There are certain felonies where you're automatically made to give your DNA. So a lot of times, encourage people to do the rape kits because they help us identify people further on down the line. So that's very important that we are able to preserve the evidence and that we're able to get people in immediately.
James spoke to the legislation that was passed as a result of the work that Kim Worthing's doing in different organizations that wanted to bring awareness to this, that make it so backlog doesn't happen. What is that period of time that a kit can sit? What is the new period of time so that backlog doesn't? It's just my own. I'm just curious.
For us, we typically pick them up every day. When they're collecting them, we actually go and we pick the kids up every single day. And so we're kind of getting them in and getting them out. We don't want to.
So you get them in and they get processed. Is it a week? Is it a month?
We send them out. We send them immediately. I can't.
You can't speak to how the process of it.
They do send it to the crime lab, right in Northville, and usually it's 30 to about 90 days.
Okay,
so we understand.
And the big thing is just getting it, getting it collected and getting it sent up.
If someone is charged, what is for the different manifestations of sexual assault? What are the penalties associated with if someone is?
So there's a wide array depending on what it was. Like I said, CSC 4, which is just like basically like a basic touch of overflow. It's a misdemeanor, but we run the whole gamut of sentencing guidelines. Like it goes from say on the low end maybe a few years to life in prison. So for a certain criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, actually a life sentence.
Like what?
Like if there was a homosexual conduct that occurred in the course of another felony, say a person invaded a home and used force and then committed a sexual assault, that carries the possibility of a life sentence.
No, that's fine.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
What does rehabilitation look like? Is that a reality? Is that not a reality?
So we're kind of getting in. Well, it's always been we want to push it more. As far as we have the victims advocate program, so they offer all their services are free of charge. It's therapy afterwards. We have some support groups out there that we partner with as well. So we want to make sure we press that kind of thing. A lot of.
And what about for the perpetrators? No. Okay.
But I don't worry. And I hate to go back to the word victim simply,
Which is awesome.
particularly that role afterwards.
Do you have any statistics that speak to where, if the amount of assaults are decreasing, increasing? And do you have any advice that we as a community can do to just protect us?
As far as the statistics, it's kind of funny. We're typically in the police department, you want to see your numbers go down. You want to see a decrease. You want to see crime going down. Here, it's kind of double-edged sword. We want to see crime go down, but we also want to see people reporting this because it's underreported. So there's as much about it. Last year, the sex crimes unit handled 2,053 cases. Now, we're set to surpass that because year to date we're at 575 right now. So the thing is, we want to see a decrease, but we want to see an increase in the reporting. So it's kind of tough to gauge whether it's actually a downturn because it's not something that can be targeted. This isn't like robberies where you might have a crew and you can target this specific area. This is just something that's far ranging in terms of every culture or every demographic. So it's not something that we can particularly target for enforcement, but it's something that we target for awareness. So we have we actually rolling out a program in the next couple of months where we're going to be going out to schools, making children aware of the different types of sexual assaults. We're also making them aware of certain laws, like the age of consent. Because a lot of kids don't understand that if you're 14, even if your partner's 14, neither one of you can consent to sex legally. So we wanted to, at 16 years. At 16 years, right? And that was what we run into a lot in the schools is that, kids see their peers as just their peers. They don't think about, okay, I'm a senior, and this classmate is a junior or freshman. So you might be in there, you're 17 or 18 years old, but you go to school with these people, so you don't understand the difference between an adult and a child. So that's kind of one of the things that we want to push. We're also pushing out the social media security, because a lot of times the problem is that our children put too much information out into the internet. Yeah. They put too much information on the social media, and they don't understand that they're targeted by people. So we just kind of try to attack that as well, getting awareness out there.
I want to go to what Wayne County did, and maybe this is something for both of you. But what is language that we should be teaching? So, two-part question. What is language that we should be equipping our young people with when something happens to them, or if they heard of something that happens? That's one. And then the second is, what age is it appropriate to begin to speak to your children about the different variations of sexual assault or being sexually violated? Because I know a lot of parents have questions like, or is 6 too young? Is 5 too young? Is 8 too young? And so I don't know.
Well, okay. If I'm interested, so at Wayne County Safe, I'm the human trafficking specialist. So, and I'm here to talk about our services, and that go. The one thing I think is believing children, because, for example, I just came from the county jail. I'm there 1 to 2 times a week. 98% of women who are there did tell someone when they were 4 or 5. But as we've heard stories today, girls and young women are not valued. And that's we're not believing them, right? Sometimes so a lot of the times the exploitation that we talk about is right inside the home. It's not down the block. It's not happening in another state, country. It's happening there. So, there is no safe place technically and with social media now, that's where all of that, and I'll talk about trafficking later and what we should do. But my main thing is believing youth when they say, because there is value in that. And Wayne County Safe, I think we tested about 900 kids last year. My colleague Nicole Denson will be here a little bit later, and how many still aren't reported, right? So, and when I deal with a lot of moms and dads and family members, they say, well, it happened to me. No one believed me, and she just needs to deal with it. So it's that thing of hurt people sometimes. It's kind of a cyclical thing of coming together. It's never too late to heal in that way. So with education, with awareness, I say, as a parent, I honor each person here who is one. That's up to you. But it's never too early, I believe, because it's your body, it's your sacred space. If something isn't right, you should have an adult to tell, right? And schools are now being more informed of things. I do a lot of work. I'm on a couple different task forces. One is SEMTAC, Southeastern Michigan Task Force Against Exploited Children. The other is the JAT, Joint Anti-Trafficking Task Force. So I operate on a lot of stings. I work with law enforcement because my main thing is not criminalizing girls who are coming forward because they're being exploited as prostitutes. I don't want to get off track, but that's what I talk about.
So I want to come back because I feel like your piece is really crucial to discussing rape culture. I think rape culture starts with the music we hear and the songs that make it okay, and ends up with sex trafficking and human trafficking being a thing of being rampant, and so and again, rape culture looks like 11,000 kids that get to just sit, 30 years of kids that get to sit because women's bodies are not valued. So I want to come back.
Sure. I want to just jump in. I'm actually trying to divide it into 3. call it the Kitty Squad, which is my squad, and we deal with sexual assaults against people who are 15 and under, and then we have adults and all, and adults unknown. So I'll tell you about those. But specifically about the kids, I wanted to get into that because we partner with it's the Children's Advocacy Center. It's called Kids Talk, and what we do when we interview children, we interview children a bit differently than we interview adults, and it kind of goes hand in hand with when we talk about believing children. And there's certain, as a law enforcement officer, I'm always kind of, I hate to go back to this, but thinking about when something goes to trial, because for me that's like the ultimate thing we're working towards, getting something through the judicial system and getting a conviction. And part of that is you have to interview kids in a forensically sound manner. What that means is children psychologically have a need to please adults. So when we interview children, we don't want to ask them leading questions. We don't want to plant a seed that becomes a story that turned out to be. So there are times when things happen, but if we question children in a forensically in an unsound manner, then they make it into something that's unbelievable. So talk about talking to kids. When is an age that's appropriate? Me personally, from doing what I do, as soon as your kid is able to talk, as soon as your child is able to talk, you need to start talking about body parts and
the proper names for body parts.
Proper names for body parts. Because a lot of times we use those Kit Kat,
your cuckoo,
and I hear them
your pocketbook.
I don't know where you get that. If you use the correct names, it makes it easier for us to get the correct information. Because the difference between, like I told you, the difference between a CSC 3 and a CSC 1 or a CSC 2 or forcible contact. If a child can go into that interview and actually verbalize that someone inserted something into me as opposed to just touch me, there's a different charge. So that's important. So we want to, I say, as soon as your kid is verbal, we need to start, telling them about their body and where are places that should be touched, where are places that shouldn't be touched, who should see you in what manner, and also be cognizant of that ourselves, like how we present ourselves around our children. So those are like some of the big points we want to get with the kids because they don't know, so they rely on us to guide them in the right direction, and it helps us in the long run as law enforcement. We're able to get we're able to send them the kids talking everything. Recollection of what occurred. And with kids, it's really important that we get them as soon as we can. Because time, their concept of time isn't developed. So we need to be able to ask them these detailed questions, but they may not be able to explain like this is during the school year. So we have, so if you get them in there, a child may remember something, 7-year-old can remember something that happened a week ago, but it might not be able to tell you that this happened over the course of 2 months or something like that. And we also got to have to really look at our families. A lot of times we see these cases where they're like, oh, that's Uncle Joe. We put him in that back room and just don't sit on his lap. No. If Uncle Joe is touching the kids, we need to know that. He's a criminal. He's not going to stop. So a lot of times we see where the parents have been sexually abused by somebody in the family, and they just try to keep the kids away. But it's happening through generations. So that behavior needs to stop. If this is going on, somebody has to say something. And a lot of times we as a culture have to come still to grips with that.
All right. I want to open it up to questions. We're gonna transition into 2 more of our performers sharing, and then we're gonna go into the conversation about rape culture. So really quick, just some cool social media housekeeping. Please hashtag any pictures you're taking or any video. Hashtag Denim Day Detroit. We definitely appreciate it. Hashtag Denim Day. Hashtag End Rape Culture. Also, please, there's a donation bin. All of the donation proceeds as you come in will be donated to the Sasha Center, and Ms. Kalima Johnson, the founder, is here with us, and hopefully she'll speak a little bit about to us. And after our conversation about what rape culture is, We'll have another presenter share music with us. And then our final conversation is going to speak to healing. Healing, what happens, and basically just like how survivors push through, and everybody copes and manages in different ways, but sometimes we don't know the tools that are necessary to cope and to manage. And sometimes just, like myself, I think my experiences are very much on the gray matter side, but for other people, how do we support them? What's the best way to be a supporter and to be able to share that with other people? And so I want to open the floor to questions for Sergeant Holder. Yeah, Holder. I am
What's been on the training for police officers about sensitivity toward this? Because so much of the problem is that they're not leading the way, not children, but women that are making reports. And so in the academy, no, it's on. In the academy is our police officers getting better training. So there's a little tell you if you watch that documentary, you think that people in LA have never done it.
Well, I know here, our practice here is during the training academy, we actually go out and do a presentation to the recruits ourselves. Like I said, we're a victim-centered unit, so to be honest, we don't play that here. It's not something that we do. But the volume of cases that we handle and experience, most of our detectives have been at the sex crime unit for at least 10 years. So they know how to do that. Now, also, we are always going to training, different kind of training, forensic interview training or victimology. So we typically don't run into that problem. And our first line police officers don't really have, they don't have that in-depth contact with the victims. They usually will generate the initial report, and we typically have them convey the victims down to headquarters, and our detectives talk to them. Or in other situations, we'll actually go out to the scene and speak with them there, or go to the hospital. We respond to the hospital often as well. So we typically don't run into that issue, and we always are open to somebody runs into an issue. Let us know.
If I may say, I was just going to say collaboration, I think, is key on that one, because sometimes when a road officer does appear at the hospital, may not know through a little bit explanation of trauma, what that is. Maybe this young girl is being trafficked or she's not a prostitute. That will frame that. And I think there needs to be a lot more education to juries as far as rape trauma syndrome and because there's still many cases. I have a legal background, but I don't practice law, but where juries are still not convicting. So justice means many different things. And so that's why we try to present all options in the beginning and be realistic, because there are still huge gaps as far as rape culture goes and believing she didn't look like a victim. So there's all of that. So that's why continued education, awareness, and collaboration is key. That's why we have these task forces.
Before we even pass it on, can I just show you that we are the jury? You're going to sit on somebody's jury. So the more you know, the more you educate yourself, and the more you educate others, you have a better chance of people understanding and being sympathetic and doing the right thing to get justice.
Yes. The definition that you reminded me of, coercion being part of the definition of rape. I guess I have
or sexual assault.
Sexual assault. I have an experience where we had 3 teenage girls, 14, 16, that they were doing. For the most part, police did nothing. They were like, get the kids on whatever. So I set up something that on the investigation, I found out where they were. I called the police. We to the address, pretty much forcibly entered where the person was to find out that this was a grown teenage girl. At that point, I did the police, they finally came, and the girls, I guess, left through with whatever. But the man was determined it wasn't still there. The police officer said, she's 16. This man was 27 years old, but he said she consented. So the other 2 girls were like 14 and 15. But I guess the question, the gray area to me is, if they didn't know he was 27, they thought he was 18. So to me, there would be a degree of coercion present for him to have, convinced him that he was 18 and he was actually not. So what they consented to was kind of fraudulent in the presence of the police. And this man had cameras, visible, out cameras, backpacks, and the police did nothing. They just pretty much was like, pretty much be happy you found your kid. And for me, that's a problem because clearly there was some sexual misconduct and some things that were going on, exploitation of these young girls. And from what I found, again, with my own investigation, this man had been going to the high school telling people he was 18 for years. He had been telling them. And no one wanted to hear it. It wasn't, I think because they couldn't figure out a crime, so to speak. So it was not addressed.
So, kind of twofold. I'm going to give you the best answer I have. And sometimes the answers aren't the ones we want. As it relates to the 15 and the 14 and 15-year-old, absolutely not. Second part of that is, as it relates to the 16-year-old legally, it's not a crime to lie about your age. So that's the part I'm saying. But yeah, it's not a crime for you to lie about
So what does coercion mean?
But so coercion is that situation. Let's take the coercion out of it and just deal with that situation. There's a crime there because at the bare minimum, this contributes. However, what we run into is cooperation with the big cooperation. So with that 14, in our case, sex crimes, especially would exist with the 14 and 15-year-old. Now, what we would attempt to do in that situation is to get those young ladies in and interview them. Try to get as much information as we can in hopes that had there been a sexual assault, that they would disclose it to us. At the very least, you would have contributed to the delinquency of the minor. And at least get this guy's information inside of our system so that we know.
No.
Now, if that didn't occur, then that's something that we do need to address. But it's kind of one thing that we always talk about is that we want to give you. We don't want to feed any unrealistic expectations. You know, and that's kind of where we have to have that dialogue and make that awareness that we do want people to come forward with these things. You know, and it is an issue that wasn't taken seriously because it absolutely is serious. Because how many other times has this occurred in the city? We've been going to high school for plenty, for years. So we do need to have that information, but we also need to have a realistic expectation of what's going to happen after the police report is made. So we can only do so much with the cooperation that we receive legally. You know, as the law is stated now, 16 is the age of consent. I can't tell somebody 16 years old that they can't consent to having sex. But the other two, that should have definitely been something that we should have looked at.
Just a point of clarification. I just want to ask, because you would know better than anybody in the room. At 16 in Michigan, they can consent, but not to someone that's 21, correct?
No, they can consent. It's not a.
I will pull it up for you. Because they can't consent to a 21-year-old. That's why 21-year-olds can't take girls to proms and things like that because they're alcohol buying age. So I just want to know about that. But the other piece that I hear you saying more importantly is that when you have someone who's been grooming victims for so long, it's very difficult for them, because the girls that were in the room, I don't know this situation, but it's really hard for police officers to do their work when it's Stockholm syndrome. It's like these victims it's just like, the best way I can think about it is the women that R. Kelly has in Atlanta and in Chicago. It's like they're not telling because they don't really even recognize that they're even in a situation. But that's not your situation.
No, I totally, and I can see that you have to work with them for investigating. What I was saying is the fact that they were dismissive of it. They were not considered a charge. It was more like, look at you, pick my servant.
A lot of times too, we have to understand that we have to hold people accountable at every level.
Right.
You know, it doesn't stop with the police part, it doesn't stop with the victim. We have to hold people accountable at the judicial level as well. So it's important that when we're seeing these cases line accountable. Even ourselves, when we get that jury duty notice and we just kind of toss it to the side and don't go. That's something that has to be addressed at every level and has to be taken serious at every level.
I'm sorry, I was gonna ask if you could say something, like, and I was gonna say, is it possible she can get more information?
Hello, sir. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I was also gonna say too, it's again another reminder that these are young girls, right? So it's not their job to make the case, and no offense, because we work together, so, this does happen sometimes with law enforcement, so that's why as community partners and collaborators through Wayne County Safe, through the special task forces, as Kalima had said, there's grooming going on, exploitation. This is a known perpetrator. I'm sure he's been in some contact with them. So it's about if family's not able to step up or maybe it's not safe, that's my job is working with girls who are involved in some type of life or maybe in and out of something. If you say cameras or that, there's obviously more going on, and it goes back to valuing young girls and women and not just pushing them aside because I can guarantee if they did social media and connect with FBI. So Nicole McGee, who works for the FBI, she's a victim specialist. She had asked me also to be here. We work together, and she also encourages to make a complaint or a police report to local law enforcement. But if not, you can reach out to me or with her as the FBI and as part of SEMTEC, and they will, especially if it's a juvenile or minor, they do follow that. There's also the national hotline, national trafficking hotline, which I brought some information to pass out, so everyone has that. And feel free to call, and you can make whatever information available to them. And I'm here, I'm happy to answer questions later too.
Okay, that's good. See, the thing is, when he said it was no case, I didn't pursue it because he said it was no case.
They always don't know, no disrespect, but with what they have, they can only do, but they start piecing things together, and you better believe things start showing up.
And then too is also asking for if we don't have a lot of people don't think that we have a big issue with this. You don't get the service from the frontline officers that you think you deserve. No. Then you need to call the supervisor. You need to go into a station and let because we don't know. I don't know. I'm not there.
I'm gonna do one more question over here.
I'm sorry. So my name is Consuelo Lopez, and I'm very glad and I'm going to be working with this. On that note, what the sergeant, right?
Yes.
Sergeant, he said is that in every precinct in the city of Detroit, we have many police officers, and there is a hierarchy of who you can report to. If one person, if the frontline officer does not respond to you, then you go above their head and you just keep on going. And even if you attend like one of the police commissioners meetings or whatnot.
The police commissioners meetings are once a month. You can go to that meeting and you can approach. And the police commissioners meeting is made up of people who are elected and appointed. And you as a citizen can make make a complaint right there, and it will get handled from the bottom, from the top to the bottom. So the important thing, what I find, because I'm also working helping human trafficking survivors, mostly because they're immigrant and whatnot. But what I'm finding is that we're trained to stop at the person we are initially talking to, and what was mentioned over and over is that we're the jury, we have to educate ourselves. There's so many times, as being a victim myself, I was silenced by the officer. And the officer told me, two Black women officers, they said, oh, I must have wanted it because I went on a date with him, so I must not have gone. Now, this was 20 years ago, and I'm very grateful that 20 years ago and now, there's more things that empower us, and as a community leaders, and I call myself a guardian, I'm a cultural guardian, it's my responsibility to go into places in the dragon where no one else will go, and that's what I feel like we should do. So we have the opportunity to go to our NPOs, go to the commander, the captain, and all that information is on the DPD app. All their cell phone numbers.
So again, I want to thank Sergeant Golden. Did I miss that? Okay, good. And
Melissa
Melissa Madonna, and she'll be joining us. Hopefully, you'll stick around. We are going to transition to our performance segment. We're going to have two performers come and share with us. One will be Sophia. She is, I hope I said your artist name right. Okay, my sister Sophia, and she's a brilliant musician. She's so awesome. And my other sister, her name is Zara. So we're going to give them a moment to just set up. Again, there is, shout out to one of our other partners who's in the building. Please give a round of applause for still standing. They partnered with us for our third year Denim Day. I'm so happy to see them. So we're gonna let Sophia set up. Cookies in the back are free, and please take and enjoy. The donation jar for Sasha Center is up front, so feel free to drop in. My organization, The Pure Movement, has T-shirts for sale in efforts to help our org, and they're in the back. If you have questions, ask me. Feel free to help yourself to water, pop, and chips are done. And see. Okay. We'll do that.
That's the main concern. We celebrate when the tables turn to see. It feels like I'm more than just wait forever, when others not wrong, and that was just. wise man, but still the grind can't stop till let it in your lane, get bigger like dreadlocks. Still can't ignore so far from the last guy. Yes to the yes man, rhyme and mascots. Look past the moment and try to find the last component. Trying to find an answer. People is like glasses, passion. Blink of an eye, with ghosts like a phantom. I would imagine a whole block popping, cool shorts and glasses. More like no ashes and ashes. Live like fast with no crashes. People picture that with no caption. Try to see the vision, no glasses. People picture that with no cameras and flashes. You can just imagine. Still keep my heart like faster. Still keep it real tab like putting money in the matches. And that's just one breath. No, I can trump that. It's like seeing it go back. You need to do that. You know that's what.
Thank you, guys. We want to round up our conversations. We want to get ready to hear the sounds of Sophia, and then after Sophia, Azara. So, and then after that, we want to get into our discussion about what rape culture is and what we as a community can do to end it. And we have a lot of sexual assault superstars in the building. Oh, check. Thank you, guys. We want to wrap up our conversations and we want to come back into the space. We want to get into our second portion of the evening. We want to hear the sounds and selections of Sophia as well as Zara. So please give them a round of applause. Even before they come to so y'all know that we're ready for that. And then afterwards, we're going to get into our conversation about the definition of rape culture, different ways that it shows up, and what we as a society and people and community can do to end it. So, with no further ado, the sister is dope person, dope songwriter, dope vocalist, out here doing production. We got that. All right, give it up one more time for Sophia.
Well, I probably don't even mic. I think y'all can hear me.
Oh, they can. Okay. All right, I'll use the mic. Good evening, everybody. I'm super honored to be here. Number one, just to be in the presence of people who are definitely using their light. And also, Michelle, thank you very much for sharing that. I was kind of about to start tearing up, over there because I felt you. And I have friends. I'm actually a daughter of a survivor. So understanding generational, traits, pain that can be that can be passed down, is possible. It's very possible. Luckily, she did raise me when you guys are talking about introducing body parts, certain scenarios. She was always on it when I was younger. She bought me a little book called How Babies Are Made, and it was paper mache. And I was looking at it like, like, what is this? And this was when I was in the third grade. And from there on, I always let her know. I've been in situations and I've always let her know I knew how to take care of it because of the love that she showed me, but because of what she experienced. So when Mahogany asked me, I was like, yeah. I was already looking at the flyer like, I don't get there. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come. So I'm honored to definitely be amongst women, men and women who care about especially sexual assault and just being able to speak out and how to get access to those resources. So I just gonna share a song called Final Form. Sorry. Technology.
This is what you're fighting for, fighting for, fighting for. What would you do with the light that's inside of you? This is not your fighting for, fighting for, fighting for.
Fine form.
Definitely. I thought it was so beautiful too, because so that piece, that art piece is actually done by a teenager. She just got a full ride scholarship to CCL. And she's the daughter of the man Caleb who donated cookies to us. So hopefully you guys got to have half were vegan and the other half were just good old home chocolate chip cookies. But yeah, his daughter is just mind blowing. I think now she's 17. But she did this piece when she was 15 years old, and just speaking to the idea of that this is not your final form. And so you see the front part of her, and she's bare-breasted, and it says property, and you see her wearing like a Chanel bag, you see her mouth covered up, but then you see her inside, and you see, these butterflies, but my freedom belongs to me. And so us understanding that the way that we are objectified, the way that we are handled, that's not our final form. So I really thought that song was perfect.
That's exactly what it is. That's the butterflies on the back. Like that definitely represents that. And that's what the song is for. I try to do like less words to be more instrumental so that you can feel the difference in the chords and just kind of just listen. Because I've been in dark places. I know people that have been in mentally dark places. And sometimes you feel like that is it, like that's the last place that you can be, and that's not true. It's not true how things can form and take place, and how you can break out of it. So that's what Final Form was, and basically, what you gonna do with the light inside of you? Because everybody's born with light. So that's what that song is about. The next song I was trying to think about, I was doing something. The next song I'm gonna do is called Mountaintop. And it's basically about just being at the mountaintop with them feel like, and everybody can get there. And I know everybody would prefer to be at the top, the mountaintop, not in the low status. So that's what this song is. isn't cool. Ooh, only with you. I'll be at the mountain top. I'll be up there for a while. Let me be at the mountain top. Hey, I'll be up there for a while. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Okay, so you guys can find me on social media, on Instagram through Sophia L. That's SOPHIYAH.EL. Or I have another handle too, it's SOPHIYAH. And that's where you guys can find me at. Thank you very much for being here.
So, you all, we have, we're gonna hear from Zara, and then we're gonna get into what, let those conversations, just because I'm mindful of time, and then we're gonna close out with a treat. Her name is Joy Tiffany. She is all over, and her voice is extraordinary. So, yeah, we're gonna go into the Zara, and then we're gonna have our discussion, we're gonna learn trade culture and sexual assault and what healing looks like. And then we're gonna close out with Joy. So please, a round of applause. I met her years ago. I'm telling how old I am. And she was legit phenomenal then, and it's been years since we connected. And when I reached out and asked her, she said yes. I'm really excited. So you guys are in for a treat. Please stand up right now for Zara.
What's going on in there? How's everybody doing? How you feeling? Good, good, good. Well, I just wanted to say a couple words as well. Abuse comes in many forms, and I wasn't a victim of rape at all, but I have been a victim of abuse and in domestic violence. So that's why when she said, I was like, absolutely. So I know exactly how it is. And so I just want to encourage, especially women, and I love that you're empowering women like that is phenomenal because we need it. You never know what somebody is going through. And so just to empower us today, I want us to really get inspired. I'm gonna start singing. This song is called Roar. And this song is very powerful to me because it's just an anthem, and just to, let your voice be heard, stand up to these things and just, let your light shine. So it's hold my tongue and hold my breath, sketch walk the floor, make a mess. So I say quietly, agree politely. I guess that I forgot I had a choice. Let you push me past the breaking point. But for nothing. So I look for everything. Hold me down, but I gotta get already rushing off the desk. Hear my voice, hear that sound. Like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I gotta get already getting down. I see it all, I see it now. I've got the eye of the tiger, a fire, dancing through the fire. Not a hell change.
until the night we roll louder, louder than the lion, lion, a champion, until the night we roll. You're the night we roll. Now I'm floating like a butterfly, singing like Sophia from the stride. Went from zero to my own hero. You held me down, but I got up, yeah. Already rushing all of the days to hear my voice, to hear that sound like thunder on the street. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I had enough. You see it all, you see it now. I can't be part of the time, girl, I'm fire. Dancing through the fire, cause I am a champion. And you're the night hero. Louder than a lion, cause I am a champion. And you're the night hero. You say, come on, you're gonna hear me roll. You say, night. You're gonna hear me and you're gonna hear me See, you're gonna hear That was so cute. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this thank you for this last one. I just want everybody to stand up and we're gonna live our life like it's golden. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. I feel so free, putting it on shame, putting it on my shame, where I lay it down, taking my break down, putting it in my heart, where I choose to go, you feel satisfied, hold the light like the dance, the light like the door, yeah, hey, yeah, feel the light like it's okay. Hey, yeah, taking my freedom, in my song, singing that I'm strong, holding on that I'm shaking my Everybody say, living my life. Living my life. Woo! Yes, ladies, yes. Amen, amen.
Give it up for Azari, y'all. She got it up her life on the soul.
You can find me on all social media at Azera Music. It's real easy. All right, perfect.
All right, you guys, make sure you follow us there. We're going to get into the most important portion of our time together in our community forum. So if we can all just kind of move in and take our seat. And let's talk a little bit about what rape culture is. We're going to hear some testimonies. We have a few speakers that came. We have Ebony here, as well as a few other people. I don't need this mic. I'm sorry. I'm like, I just feel weird. I'm just loud, actually. All right. Oh, for the broadcast. I guess I can do it for the broadcast. Before we do that, let's remember that this is a benefit for Sasha Center. So if you are able, please give your donations in the donation bucket. We'll talk more about the Sasha Center, especially because as we talk about the work of healing and how it is that you cope when something like this happens and how we can be of support. And so we define what sexual assault is, but rape culture is a little different. And now I guess, do I have to use it? Okay, I'll still keep using it. Okay, so what do you all know rape culture to be? If there was a definition for what rape culture is, I want to throw it out to everybody. What do you know rape culture to be?
I guess I understand it to be like certain norms that are considered to be okay. So, for instance, like we were talking about music. Also, for instance, like tag. I think that would be in there. That would be an easy hide and seek type thing. When you're younger, you don't know any better. But it turns into something else, especially when somebody that's clearly of age introducing themselves into the game. So, like, I would think that maybe that's kind of a solution.
Who else wants to take a stab at, no pun intended at that, rape culture? The definition for rape culture. Anybody else?
I wouldn't call this a definition of rape culture, but I think it's a good example of it, or it points to it. When societal norms essentially silence you. You know, when societal norms say, well, what they did is normal, so if you feel uncomfortable with it, that's on you. You know, there's no big deal. The phrase "no big deal" is a really huge sign that you're dealing with rape culture, because to diminish or protect a violator in order to well, you can't tell because black men get really bad reputations, and so we have to keep it quiet. We don't want people to know that we have this in our culture, and it's not just black people. It happens in, we don't want them to know that this happens in immigrant communities. We don't want them to know that this happens in our church or our school. And so when you have to be quiet to protect the status quo, that's a really huge red flag that you're dealing with rape culture. Thank you so much for the two descriptions. I think you're absolutely right. If I was to take a stab at rape culture, I would say it's the way that we in society exist, where we ignore rape jokes. We ignore and we actually support rape in a way where we objectify women and it's okay. I mean, it doesn't take a naked woman to sell a car, but that's happening. Rape culture looks like Rick Ross, for instance, in his song "You Don't Even Know," when he says, "I put Molly in her champagne, she ain't know it. Go home and enjoy that, but she ain't know it." But when you think about rape culture, what happened was he was in the studio recording that in front of other people, and no one said anything, and it still made it to the radio, and it still made it, and it doesn't even matter. I'm not here to just, any kind of genre of music, because I have interns that can quote country music that murder wives in their songs. But what I'm saying to you is that as rape culture, we watch a movie maybe once or twice. I don't watch Forrest Gump 20 times. I'm gonna admit that. But when you listen to music is the soundtrack to our lives. And if you hear this lyric every day, all day, I get in my car get ready to go to work, and I'm 5 minutes away from my job, and I'm gonna get called 50 bitches before I can get out the car.
That's rape culture when no one challenges it and no one says anything and it's okay. And people show up to work with these attitudes, they show up at school with these attitudes. Rape culture is the notion that violence against women is okay and it's allowed and it's accepted in jokes and memes and all the kind of stuff we might have on the screensaver at work. Rape culture is the actual act of violence against women happening right under our noses through pop culture, music, anything, and no one says anything.
That speaks to a little bit, and I don't know if Nicole wants to talk to it. So R. Kelly came to Detroit and he did his show, and everybody said, "Okay, I'll give you my $100. I want to see you, R. Kelly." And so things like this, I think we're in the age of the era where I think we don't believe our voices or protesting matters, but it does. What are some of the things? What is the R. Kelly new R. Kelly movement, and what are some of the things that are happening as a result of it? And these are ways that we can combat rape culture. So I want to hear from you all. What do you think are ways that we can combat rape culture? And I want to share a few more examples.
Sure. So, New York Kelly started, I know, in Detroit 2009.
Oh.
It did not start last year. Actually, Sasha Center and Community Services held a protest on 2009 concert at the Fox Theater. It was sold out 2 nights in a row. And really what we have to understand and know is that what happened, the new R. Kelly, hashtag New R. Kelly campaign started in July of last year with Kenyette, Tish Grimes, and Orenike, who decided to come up with that hashtag in Atlanta because they was hearing about what was going on in his houses in Atlanta. And what happened was those two sisters were smart enough to follow his concerts and to find the advocates in every city to see if they could do something. And the first thing that happened was Nicole Denton from Wayne Honey had an outburst on Facebook and said, "I'm tired of R. Kelly coming to the city of Detroit. If we're supposed to be this new city, we need to challenge and talk about it." I was re-energized. To be honest with you, he was here at Shane Park last summer. I went to Sherry Garden. I was done. I was tired. But when this young sister right here put that post out there, it got me re-energized. And I said, "I'm gonna help you." So she was the leader of it. She actually was like a leader, and I was the co-helper. And what we did collectively in Detroit, we in the city, okay? Put this on Facebook, put it wherever you want to, hashtag it. We in Detroit showed up and showed out, even though he performed. I have never seen that many protesters in any city that he's been in all year long. So Detroit, y'all have something to be very proud of. And Vice HBO came and covered us. We were on Vice HBO February 23rd. And it just led to a whole bunch of other things that are still happening. Do y'all know that the University of Chicago is about to elect him to perform on Mother's Day? And we gonna take a van. We not done. We are helping a long walk home, Shahrazad, the leader of the long walk home. We are helping them right now organize, and we are about to look at a draft of a letter to the president of that university because we cannot believe that that's going to be happening, and that's his hometown. So I mean, the stakes are high. The stakes are high. But the issue is, I'm going to say this: R. Kelly is not really the issue. The issue is how we have responded and protected perpetrators in our communities. And the same people that are buying them tickets to R. Kelly are the ones telling you got to sit down next to that raping ass uncle at Thanksgiving. And we having a real conversation. How long are we going to continue to do that? I'm sorry, my language is strong. I forgot where I was.
No,
I apologize.
no, I mean, I just hate how it's literally like that image of that girl's mouth being covered.
Yes.
You know, I mean, like, this is so strange to say because this never happened to me. Or something like this never happened to me, and it was strange for it to happen to me as an adult. So I'm on my flight coming home from Nepal, and I'm sitting next to a Nepalese man. He's cool. We're talking. Everything is okay. And then I'm like, is his leg rubbing on my leg? Well, he's just next to me. That's not happening, right? That's not happening. And then it got aggressive. And then I literally had to take his hand off my thigh. And so I'm literally on this 4-hour flight from Nepal coming to Dubai so that we can catch our flight. And I'm like, what do? I am grown. And I'm like, am I going to cause a scene? Am I gonna look crazy? How can I politely just say, or the things that make us politely just be like, I'm always nice to when people do cat calls. But cat calling is annoying and it's rude. But my mother taught me to be nice because people are crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like you can mess around and somebody shoot you because you refuse someone. So does anybody else have any, now that we're getting a sense of what rape culture looks like, what do you do? How do we do? What do we do? How do we do? And R. Kelly, actually, Tom, you said Tom Joyner's not playing his song?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
We are so proud of him because this whole other station, he has over how many 30 million or more listeners. Yeah, we're hoping more people will do that. But I just want to say real quick, it takes a village. It takes people to mentor each other. So you might have a survivor, you might have someone who has been mentoring you for a very long time. And we have to have sisterhood here in Detroit. Because a lot of us are survivors, a lot of us are also activists and in the music industry, and we can't do this by ourselves. So just like you don't know somebody here, like get to know them. Have a sister, because silence is what breeds rapists.
Sisterhood and brotherhood.
Yeah,
We didn't talk about that prison rape thing. We didn't talk about young boys who were arrested. Yeah. And we didn't talk about how a lot of the sex trafficking culture breeds in I'm being abused at home. And I'm used to this type of sexual activity. I'm using the energy in the wrong way, but it doesn't mean that I want to be wrapped or trapped in a lifestyle of trafficking. But now I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out. I feel blamed. I feel shame. Right? So, anybody else?
I want to say something to that, and then if you don't mind turning, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over here. But the other thing when it comes to rape culture is we don't talk about women perpetrators. We say, oh, that teacher was really pretty. He got lucky as a 13-year-old, or he got lucky as an 11-year-old to be able to sleep with a 33-year-old woman. And you're like, okay, but if she was ugly, or if she were black, or if she were any other thing, would we not call it a crime? That's rape culture when boys get lucky at a young age. That's a good example. Something that I see often is whenever there is a police presence, and someone addresses it, I see the appeasing of particular behaviors as part of that rape culture. On both sides, I've never been a criminal. I'm, up in age now. But I've had several examples of things that I've had to deal with officers going into the precinct trying to get help for certain situations, having someone say something out of the way. While the officers are standing there, I'm in the precinct. I have been kicked out because I wanted to speak to somebody, but everybody was already there. We don't feel safe. Like something on their part needs to change. Education on our part needs to change. That's something that I'm willing to help with because I recognize that we don't know what to do. Like what I heard today, I didn't know about the different chains of command. I of course know somebody's over somebody, but when I inquired, I had a problem. That's not anything new. I've heard this before. All these 4 decades, there's been this issue that needs to change.
You were saying, talking about just like, well, what can we do? And one of the things I always think about is trying to remind the men in our lives and the men that love us that we need them to be our allies. We need them to shut down when, because so many times you'll be at the bar or whatever, and there's 3 guys sitting there, and maybe it's 1 or 2, and there's usually one that's like, could see something, but doesn't. So I think like encouraging our brothers to be like,
hey, we need you on our side. So if you care about us, you're gonna shut down your friends that do that cat call. If you're driving in your car with your friend and he starts yelling out the window, that's a time where you can say, you know what, that's not acceptable anymore, and I don't want you to do that. I know it's hard for people to do that, but it's part of what we need. We need to start changing what's acceptable, because this has all been acceptable for so long. We're so used to it.
I want to say that the work that I am evidence that Mariska, that Sasha Center does, that Kim Worthy did, I think that that work was the bubble up for the Me Too movement to really blow. Yes, working with the 490 Challenge, the work that a Pure Movement's been able to do, the work that We Found Hip Hop has been able to do, to be able to show women in hip hop in positions that, oh, you're normally not supposed to be able to share space in, right? I feel like Me Too movement, did you notice how it was these string of like different, like high profile perpetrators that were being called out, and how all of a sudden men were like, man, I don't even know if I can talk to a woman. Good, feel like that. Girl, just like that. And not like that, because we shouldn't have to do that. There should be balance, right? And I feel like there's this, and I don't want to talk bad, I'm probably in a bad position. We just need balance. I feel like one of the solutions for rape culture is us embracing our differences and us being able to make room and space for one another and not to feel threatened. The things that happen against women, the way that women's bodies are attacked, are not valued, come as a result of a culture feeling threatened, a power, a hierarchy feeling threatened. Don't feel threatened. I know what I'm good at. I understand my strengths. I understand your strengths. Together we can be stronger. You don't have to suppress me. I don't have to suppress you. Can we come together? Can you protect me? Can I support you? Can that conversation happen? And what do you guys think? What are ways that can happen?
I feel like when we talk about like rape or rape culture or like sexual assault or sexual misconduct, we always think of extreme examples of like a stranger or a boogeyman, or even like the bad uncle. But there's like so many levels of nuance. And like there's like, what is it, 3 billion something colors in the rainbow. So we only see like 12. So, and that's what it is with this whole thing. So I remember, man, I'm old, I'm 46, so this must have been about in my 20s. I was having a conversation with some of my male friends, and they were saying to me that if that be careful about smiling with guys, because smiling is an invitation. I mean, because I don't know. So the conversation we were having is about there's a certain sort of attitude that Black women are perceived to have, right? We have a bad attitude, we're angry, we're mean, and so culturally, your mothers teach you to have that attitude because that's your protection. So if you're quote unquote, you're a good girl, right? Then you always say no. There's no sort of, you don't have any sexual desires. You don't present yourself as a sexual being. It's wrong to be sexually interested in another human, even though that's a we're sexual beings. Like there should be some acceptance of us as sexual beings and sexual creatures, but you don't have the right to cross over. Now I didn't give you the right to step over. And so I guess maybe as animals, right? Maybe our animalistic, senses, we can sense when someone's attracted to us or when we're attracted to another person. But the world in which we live in, we have to go through these different levels of permissions that we have to give people. And so, even now, I have conversations with friends, because a lot of my guy friends at the whole thing are like, confused. And I mean, these are, men who consider themselves, healthy, loving men. And they're like, I don't understand. And it's like, yeah, I feel like now I have to go through all these levels of permission. And do that. And go through the levels of permission. And, and even just, when we talk amongst each other, like as women, I spoke to, Kalima, and she was telling me how the mothers, um, blame the daughters, and how, maybe there's a shame there, maybe I've taught you better than this, you're a slut, or you're this, or you're that. But at the end of the day, like how, I think we need to have more conversations about that. It's okay to be a sexual being. It's okay to have sexual desires. It's okay to 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 let another person know that you're sexually attracted to them. That's not an invitation to
Right.
to take that sex, right? Like that's how we communicate as people. There has to be how many levels before you want to have sex, and maybe you do want to have sex, right? Like maybe you do meet that person at the bar. Let's talk about that. Maybe you do consent. Like maybe like how do people be okay with that too? Because people who want to have sex with a person on the same day, why are they shamed? Why is that person shamed? Because they, as a person, they made a decision that this is what they want to do, right? So I think that just having those different levels of conversation, right? Because everyone's not a bad person, right? Because they're confused about what to do because it has become confusing. So to help it be less confusing, we have to have more conversation about it. It's not easy. It's not like do this or do that. Do this or if you meet a guy, this is what they tell you, like you meet a guy, like be careful and this and that. Like you do have to be careful, but let's talk into rapists, like about not raping.
Right.
Let's stop talking to not stop talking, but let's we focus on the women. You gotta be careful about this and that and that. I'm not saying don't be careful. I'm just saying like let's have more conversations with the people. And one more thing I want to say, there's a lot of women who are complicit in being partners with men in being sexual rapists or being. There's a lot of women who help guys rape you and who will set you up and who will get you caught up. And let's work on like that. Sisterhood piece is huge because I know a lot of the situations that I got into when I was a teenager, it was my friend. And as an adult, I could look back and be like, oh my God, like like I was like an offering. So, so we need to have more of those conversations with doing like our so I guess what I'm saying is it's so complex that it's not like just do this and then we'll end sexual assault. There's like there's so much stuff that just that has to happen. But I would like us to focus more on the raper and help them understand their behaviors. Because it's those behaviors that are being reinforced, right? Like not just like the friend, because like I said, there's many levels before we get to penetration. You know what I'm saying? So what are all those levels that we can start to really deal with, right? Because so that we're not only looking at it like, oh, penetration is what we're trying to prevent, which
I mean, I think who talks to the game? You spoke to the game of tag. Well, who remembers the black communities? Well, I don't know about other communities. Not even how you go get it. But I remember being at the community pool and summertime when you got 12 or 13 in the pool could be a scary thing because you knew you was gonna get felt up on and you didn't really know what to do. Right? So yeah. So yeah, more of what we do.
Real quick, I had a point, and you brought up a good point in that kind of jog my memory. A lot of times people don't understand also that if we're in a situation where we begin some kind of sexual act, at any time, anybody can withdraw their consent. Now, I think a lot of times people will think, well, I get this and I entice them and I have to follow through with it. No, you don't. At any time when you say, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to continue to do this, and it ends right then and there. And that's something that we need to reinforce on both ends. As far as if this happens, tell us, and we need to enforce the, like you said, the rape first. This is rape if somebody says, okay, I don't want to do it anymore. And then you don't stop. So I think that's something that goes unreported because people feel like, well, I started this and you don't have to.
Oh, yeah. Can we address the dress code with girls and how it's much harsher on them, but there's no dress code regulation for boys, with whether it's dresses or shorts or skirts, and it's not like, oh, she's distracting him or she needs to cover up or she's asking for it to wear clothing. And can we address that and make sure, like, no, it's not the clothing. We need to teach our boys and those other gazes to be mindful of that.
And not even the dress code, their behavior code.
Oh, well, I'll speak to that, and then you want to speak, there's one more, I'll answer the question too. Yeah, Consuela? Okay. So to that, with the dress code and whatnot, that essentially, that's, it's very, very, very real, and very legitimate, and I can speak to that personally, but what I would rather say is, it's a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen. It's just one of a million different ways to blame a victim. So if we can create a culture of anything that you say or do is now can be used against you. If you could take that, you could take this whole thing of the way you dress, what you drink, what you said, what you didn't say. The more that we can put on you, it makes it your responsibility. So while it is a very important part of the culture that encourages rape. It still, the shift does need to go back to, okay, well, let's start dealing with, in fact, I said this to one person who was talking about what women wear at church. I said, what do you do Monday through Saturday? Because I know you see women with shorter shorts and shorter skirts. I said, what do you do when you're not in church? Do you feel the need to run up and grab them? Well, if you use self-control Monday through Saturday, how come it's so hard for you to use self-control on Sunday? And you need to blame somebody else. It's the same thing. You don't rape at work. You don't rape. You don't pull your car over and jump out and rape somebody. I mean, some people do. But I'm saying, for the most part, you can't blame the victim when literally there are 24 hours in a day, 65 days in a year, and they're not. And this isn't something. Every single human being is exposed to the exact same temptation level. I mean, we're exposed to the same media. We're all exposed to the same people walking down the street, and yet everybody else has self-control. So let's deal with the actual problem. So I feel like the rape culture part, that is a pressure that we put on women and girls, but at the same time, the problem itself is that's simply a smokescreen and a cover up for the actual crimes that we want to detract from. And then I'll let you step in. And then who else you had one? And then you was so as so I was inspired by everyone here today. I look at my body and I embrace my curves. You look at my body and get the nerve to think that you can take my love away from myself and make me believe this okay. To destroy who I am with the help of this song, lyrics of it feels so right, so it can't be wrong. I cried out for help and I did say no, but the track in your head swears on the whole. I suffered in silence and thought bitch was my name. I sought out help, but as a victim was blamed. The people I prayed help from only pronounced shame. Finding strength in myself, I stepped up my game to find peace at all costs to become solutionary. What you see now is a result of having courage and being extraordinary. I'm awesome, I'm beautiful. As a victor, I now have the nerve to look at my body again and embrace my curves. So, and this came out from just listening to everyone today. That one of the things that, and not just from this moment, but from earlier, my sisters and the fire, Liz and Nikki back there, is emotional health. When it happened to me, and it happened more than once,
when I was 16, and then again here at Wayne State. And I remember when I told a fellow student what was happening with the professor. And she was like, oh, whatever, you should be happy that, he's giving you attention and things like that. And I remember speaking to law enforcement, to the dean, everyone, and everyone silenced me. Everyone silenced me. And I said it 2 years ago at the Denim Day. When my mother, when it happened to me, I realized I didn't understand then when my mother silenced me because it happened to her. And her mother silenced her because it happened to her. So we have a culture of being silent. But what I'm learning and embracing every year, especially because of Dinner Day, is that there's so many other sisters and brothers just like me, but we've been silenced. And the Me Too, I'm glad it is there, but it's about us supporting each other. And when it happens, having the emotional capacity, because sometimes we don't have the emotional capacity to take on the pain of others because we're in pain ourselves and we don't want to share. We don't want to say anything. We're afraid to touch each other, even if we are a stranger now, because we've been abused and it's tragic and trauma. And I think it's time for us to continue to have courage in every single last moment and also become those guardians, be who we wanted someone be who we wanted someone to be for us. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so real quick, we are, time is on our side, not on our side. And yeah, time's up, ha ha ha, hashtag. So I want to hear if we could keep our comments succinct. We'll take these two comments. I want to transition to how do we support survivors and what healing looks like. And then we have two closing performances by my sister Audrey Kubat, who is with Don. She's just a beautiful soul, singer, songwriter, composer, the bomb, and as well as Joy Tiffany, ill vocalist, ill freestyle, so all that good stuff. So enough of me. These two comments, please keep them succinct, and then let's transition to what what it looks like to heal and how do we vote. So,
Okay, I want to touch bases on the friends that you I thought that same thing in my case, but I want to touch bases on the mental illness. When people hear that you have bipolar or depression, you are not heard. And that's what kept a lot of incidents that happened to me as a child up until that last incident. I couldn't take no more. But I have been violated several times and ignored because I was diagnosed bipolar. So that's where my voice will be spoke up. So to speak up for people who are shut down because of mental illness. Everybody that has mental challenges is not incompetent or stupid or make a lie. They're human and broke down for something that started them.
and the flip of that is that trauma causes a lot of mental illnesses.
Well, I just the question was, what do we do to in red culture? How about that one over here? And so, I just want to say for each and every one of us, the thing that we can do, we talked about believing, we talked about listening, we talked about educating ourselves on what rape culture is and what it looks like. But I also want to say, and the thing is, a lot of times we put the onus on men. And this is going to sound crazy to say, but we as women sometimes consent as a culture to rape culture.
Mm-hmm.
We play the music, we do these things, and we don't say no. And I know it's sometimes awkward when people look at you like, oh, really, why are you guys going to make it on your feminist? And da, da, da. Point of the matter is, one of the things that we can do is to treat everyone with individual respect.
Mm-hmm.
If you treat everyone with individual respect, you are always asking that individual, what is okay? Is this okay? Are we okay? But if you treat everyone as though they're a generic
women this, then I speak for all women. I do not speak for all women. Some women are a lot more comfortable with things than I am. Some women are a lot less comfortable with things than I am. I don't speak for all women. So be careful to not give permission for other people. Also, be careful to not condemn for other people, because a lot of times you have the aggressive raper, then you have the guy who he didn't go out that day, put on a hoodie and decide he was going to rape her. He simply did not respect your no. And sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's not intentional, but the damage is still done. And so if we all make an effort and we educate one another, respect individuals' rights and boundaries, respect everyone's individual humanity, respect us individually. I respect you, sir. I respect you, ma'am. Respect children when they don't want to hug someone. Respect their individual boundaries, and that's something that we can all continuously reinforce. And we will transition.
All right, transitioning. How about give that last comment was powerful. I want to ask this question before we move on. Has anybody been empowered by just seeing the memes that say no? Does that just make you feel a certain way in your spirit? Like, oh, I can say no. Like, you ever forget that you can say no?
Yeah.
Right? So just that alone, like, oh, wait, I can establish boundaries and I am in power and position to respect my own boundaries and make someone else respect my boundaries. The fact that I think that's rape culture, that we as people are conditioned to not enforce boundaries, that some of us don't even know what boundaries are, right? So, okay. Where do I go from here? This has happened to me. Maybe I haven't been brave enough to talk about it. This is where I would like to entreat. I don't know if our friend from Wayne County Safe is still here, but I know that there are a lot of, oh, awesome. I know that there are a lot of individuals who do this work. I almost want to call you. You're like half of the audience, which I'm so grateful for. But what do I do? It's a range of, this just happened to me last week, to I've lived with this in silence. I've coped with it. I've had kids. I got grandkids, and I've not whispered it to a soul. I just live with it, right? But then we're dealing with things. We're dealing with different mental illnesses. We're dealing with different depressions, and nobody knows what's wrong. I don't know if Ebony wants to speak to this, and if, like I said, those who do this work, if you can speak to, just where do we go? How do we heal?
I'm Ebony Waters. I'm here today via Wayne County Safe. It's an organization that was created to fill the void between resources and survivors inside Wayne County who desperately need them. They are the go-to organization advocates and city and state government bodies for them because they are so diligent and thorough. I'm one of the 11,341 women whose rape kits were abandoned. I'm 42. My case began last year. I was assaulted when I was 16, on my way to Redford. So, unfortunately, according to those in power of the situation, I wasn't worth the time. I wasn't worth the $1,000 and enough said. our organization is it's talking about. I'm just trying to concise because it's kind of late. Um, so there have been many who have given financially to further the cause. When I was assaulted, there were no effective resources. I was left to my own devices. I had to take this sketch alone, do the lineup alone, retell the story over and over and over alone. Fast forward to 2010, my daughter's last year of high school at Western International. She was dealing with grief over the death of friends and car accidents and homicide. She made it next door to a neighbor's driveway, coming home from school, was taken by gunpoint, forced to walk to an abandoned garage and raped. My daughter came home with that unthinkable news, and unfortunately, I knew how to handle the whole scenario. No shower, don't change. Let's go to the hospital. I thought that it would be a repeat of my own ordeal because of Wayne County Safe. She didn't need to tell her story over and over like I did because they try to have all the need to know parties present before beginning. She didn't sit in there traumatized and clueless as to what would happen to her next like I did because she was given every bit of information every step of the way. She wasn't made to feel that everything needed to happen now and that she had no control like I did because they let her know that there was nothing that she had to do until she felt like doing so. She didn't have to deal with police officers alone like I did repeatedly. I'm grateful to know that Wayne County Safe actually trains police officers on how to work with victims because I wasn't taken seriously. And I know of others who would say the same. I'm glad that our state, its agencies, organizations, and advocates are leading the country in this kind of ordeal to make sure that kids are never left abandoned again because it is happening in every state, not many as far as we are. But we still have a very long way to go. And just this morning, USA Today called Michigan State University a cesspool of abuse with seemingly no bottom. It was referring to the plight that women in sports face at that school. Former Governor John Engler, the current president, has been accused of bullying one of the Nassar victims. His special counsel had to apologize last week after telling the board members the woman had outrageously distorted details of the meeting with Engler and was trying to set up the university so it would have to pay more to settle civil lawsuits. Quite the tone they're setting, and that's their quote. No wonder we have such a hard time reaching out. This is why we fight to make certain we are heard, that laws are put into place to protect us, and so that mindsets shift and our families and friends can also learn to protect us. The man that assaulted me went free for years, raping and even more violently than with me. He is now in prison in another state. He hopefully will be sent here to Detroit to face me because I like to show him a different perspective. I like for him to see that I'm a whole and healed person. I am learning and growing and impacting my community for the better. I fought against him, and in the end, I have won. I won for myself, my children, my grandchildren, and all that come after me. It'll be in their DNA because it is what you do that matters. And I aim to encourage anyone with ears, man, woman, boy, or girl, to speak up against sexual assault. I'm no longer the little girl he held at gunpoint in an abandoned house, who he left dressed, ripped, hair everywhere, afraid to leave, afraid to stay once he was gone. I'm a powerful force. All of us in this room, no matter your background or situation, it takes guts to fight this cause. This is a very emotional fight, and not everyone is cut out for it. I learned what I'm made of. I'm free in a way that that man can never imagine. And I understand the power I have in just that bit of knowledge. Knowledge is truly power. Power is freedom. I have both. Thank you.
A misplaced moment. But that was a perfect moment because I want to bring up Kalima Johnson, and this is why it's so important. I'm happy that this donation, and if we can continue to support the Sasha Center. If you've ever had your car or your home broken into, you know what that feels like to not feel safe. So what do you do? What do you do when your body's broken into? Where do you go? You can go over a friend's house if your house gets broken into. But if your body gets broken into, Ain't no escape. You got to be with you. So the work that the Sasha Center is doing for healing to take place and training supporters and having conversations with men who both have men who are both have been victimizers and victimized. Yeah.
Sort of, kind of, but not really. So I can talk more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pass it to her, and if you can speak to, or if anybody else who does this work can close us out by speaking to what are modes of healing and how we can support, and then if we could transition to our last two artists, that'd be awesome.
All right,
So
great.
give it up.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Mahogany. Thank you for just using Up Your Movement and your platform to help us this year. For those of you who don't know, Sasha Center has been around for 8 years. It stands for Sexual Assault Services for Holistic Healing and Awareness, and we actually actively concentrate on the African American community. Why? Because I myself am a survivor of sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted by a family member from the time I was 5 until I was 9, which put me at risk, and I was sexually assaulted again in the context of a first date. And then I was sexually assaulted again by a so-called boyfriend. And all of this happened before the age of 20. So I was motivated to do the work. I went to Wayne State University. My first internship that I stayed at for 10 years, I ended up working there and everything, was the actual Detroit Police Department Rape Counseling Center, which is now the Victim Assistance Program. So I've been servicing rape survivors probably about 26 years now. And one of the things that I decided to do when I said I needed to get my sisters together to start this organization was that I recognized that our conversations and the way that we heal was missing in every organization in terms of our language, our satire, our humor, the things that we do, the way that we tell stories, the way that we support one another, the way that we engage with each other. Like easily an uninformed therapist could diagnose us. And basically, I grew up on the north end of Detroit, which is not far from here. Born and raised in the city, went to school in this city. And what I want to say about the Sasha Center in particular, I'll tell you what it looks like. So the Sasha Center is a support group agency. We don't do crisis calls. We don't do court accompaniment because Wayne County Safe does that. We actually have an MOU with Wayne County Safe. All we do is get women, and in particular women of color, and in more particular Black women in Detroit together so they can heal collectively together and not feel that isolation. So what that looks like is we have a support group that happens every fourth Wednesday of the month. That's why I was late, because I was running a group right down the street at Tech Town. And a few of our group survivors came down with me, and they left a little early. We also partner with organizations who don't want to, don't know how to, and don't care to unpack sexual assault with Black women. So we partner with Salvation Army, Payne Pulliam School, Frederick Douglass Academy, and all of those groups are closed groups. But what we were trying to do specifically so that y'all can know is that we actively wanted to answer people on the other side of 8 Mile saying there are no support groups for sexual assault survivors in the city of Detroit. Stop saying that. That's not true. We may not be doing it the way you want us to do it, but we're doing it the best we can with no funding. No funding. Now, my girl, Nicole, luckily, the director of Wayne County Safe and I have been very close friends for a very long time. I was there when she first told the prosecutor's office that they needed to come up with a very specific way of how to collect evidence when rape cases would happen in Detroit. Because if y'all haven't seen the film I Am Evidence yet, when I used to carry the pager and when I used to answer the calls at DMC, it got so bad, y'all, I could tell when there was a Black woman waiting to be serviced and when there was somebody else waiting to be serviced. If I got a call from the doctor, hurry up and get down here. We did everything we needed to do. Hurry up, drop your sandwich. She wasn't Black. And if she was Black, she was politically or religiously connected in the city of Detroit. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. Thank God it's being addressed now. Thank God we're doing better. Thank God we're having all these conversations and events and all of that. So one of the things I want to say twofold. Most men don't commit sexual assault. It's like 15% of the entire population. The other percentage of the population, the 85%, those are men that need to be having conversations with the 15. And Sasha Center engages with men to teach them how to have that conversation. That's what we do.
And so because we've been doing that, because we've been in that space for so long, Sasha Center is the lead agency that works with the National Basketball Association, the National Football League, and the National Hockey League. So I travel a lot. And because I travel a lot, Sasha Center is very specific in how we do this work. And we don't apologize. We run eight-week groups for the whole year because that's all we can afford to do. We don't have an administrator. We don't have, we had $250,000. Remember when I had that money? Everybody was at the door. I want to run groups for you. I'm like, okay, come on. But that money's gone. And literally, and Nicole can speak to this, I own a condo in downtown Detroit that I do not live in anymore. And I turned it into a wellness center. For those of you who've been there before, anybody here ever been in the space? It is a beautiful space. Two poets in the city of Detroit redesigned the space so that we could use it for our facilitators, our board members, anybody that we partner with have to come and get 4 hours of training about working, not just with sexual assault survivors, but working in the African American community. So to be real clear, we do yoga, Kemetic. Are y'all following me? That's centered where in Egypt, Africa. We have Reiki masters. We have, well, listen, let me tell you something. And my board gets so mad when I say this, but the truth of the matter is, I will say it. If you a survivor and you want to be not isolated anymore, whatever you use as your tools, we already know you know how to heal. So who are we to tell you how to heal? So you can bring your crystals, you can bring your sage, you can bring your Bible, chicken foot, whatever you need. We got you. And no judgment. No judgment at all. And that's why we're here. And again, I have people approaching me saying, well, you should be doing individual counseling. You should be doing crisis work. I understand the Sasha Center is really a luxury agency, meaning that we only clear and make space for us to sit down and talk and support one another. That's what we're here for. And we're not trying to do nothing else because there are other organizations that do that. We have a signed contract with Wayne County Safe. So we got 2 events coming up and the flyers are here. I want to tell you about those. Say it again. Oh yeah, okay. So we got 3 events coming up. The next event coming up is actually Friday. Friday is our 10th annual Take Back the Night Detroit, organized and ran and decided upon by women of color and supported by white women allies. That has not happened in any other city in the country. Sasha Center is the only sexual assault specific African American agency in the country. And that's not a good thing. That means we got work to do, lots of work to do. And I want to tell y'all, that's one event. But let me tell you what our events actually look like. They are intended to be cathartic. People might say, oh, I'm coming to your event, but to be honest with y'all, it's really therapy. And the job is integration. You are not going to ever forget that you were sexually assaulted. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. What we got to do is make sure it don't get in your way. What we got to do is make sure you use it as a place of power. What we have to do is make sure you can tell that story so that you can motivate and change other people's lives and influence them. So Take Back the Night is free. We're going to have food. We got a DJ. Our event is loud as hell. Loud as hell. It's a big circus for survivors. That's what I call it. We have a healing tent, we have an art project, we have a rally, we have a DJ, the support people and all the organizations. First step, everybody's gonna be there and have a table. You ain't gonna be able to talk to them because DJ gonna be too loud. But really it's an opportunity for survivors to celebrate. Have fun. This is for you. We see you, we hear you, and we want you to be together and enjoy yourself. That's what it's about. My sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, adopted Sasha Center this year, so they gave us their space for free. So I'm really happy about that. And the next 2 things I want to talk about, this is an event. We always do this event. But the next 2 things I want to talk to you about are the way we do our therapeutic work. So we have an art making class. It's 2 Sundays in a row with the DIA. We partner with the DIA. Anybody that we partner with has to get 4 hours of sexual assault training at least to even work with us. But we partner with the DIA. We made African talking drums last summer. We made African masks this winter. And I don't know what they're gonna plan for us this time. But what they do is they take the survivors on a tour of women art, of people of color art, and of art of African descent. And then we make masks and we talk about healing and we talk about these things. The next thing we have that same weekend is the Underground Railroad Tour. We partnered with First Congregational Church, and we've done this in the past. We're gonna have I hate to say this, I don't know, beans in the room on Saturday, we're gonna have fried chicken, and it's free. But we are gonna take 22 survivors and their supporters. All you gotta do is register, and it's free. And what they do is take us on a tour because we believe culture cures. We believe that healing is possible if you understand, especially know your history. We also know and honor our ancestors because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, and we're very intentional about that. We don't apologize for it, and we always make sure that we also hear the stories, and we can give people the opportunity to tell their stories without them being stigmatized. So we have one woman in the group, and I will share, she's given me permission to share, but not everything. She blamed herself for her rape because she went down one alley and not another alley trying to take a shortcut. And she said that she usually don't take that shortcut because she went the other way because she knew that the pig lady lived down there. Now, if y'all from this area, anybody ever heard of the story of the pig lady? Don't be ashamed. Raise your hand if you heard the story of the pig lady. All right, so I know wherever I'm at, there's three. Okay, at least you heard the story of the pig lady. It's an urban legend. It's an urban legend. It's a story that Black folks told because the pig lady was supposed to be real spooky and she ate kids and she cooked, she had a witch pot. Come tell the story. Am I right? Because I'm telling you, the pig lady, everybody was scared of her. But she only would mess with kids Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Which means she supposed, what kid supposed to be in? Because the pig lady go on vacation in the summertime. And it's a real story. Y'all can look this up. It's like Candyman in Chicago. But these stories inform us of our behavior. So we were able to say to her, listen, baby, girl, it wasn't your fault. Don't blame yourself. You have every reason to be scared of that story, because I was. But if you had a therapist who was misinformed, what do you think would happen as a result of that? So we're determined and we're deliberate in understanding that we tell our stories the way we do. And I'm gonna say one more thing and I'm gonna let it go. How many people by show of hands saw the movie What's Love Got to Do with It? By show of hands. Okay. So do y'all remember the part when Tina went to the background singer's house and she quit? She had already quit. And she went to the background singer's house because she was in trouble, right? But when she walked in the door, did she say I'm in trouble? What was the first thing she did? She mocked Ike. She started imitating and signifying. Signifying is Dr. Henry Louis Gates' work. We as Black folks have 4 and 5 meanings to one thing we say. You good could mean several things. You good, like I'm really checking on you. You good? You about to say something else? Or you good? You know, we do that. And so anyway, she came in the room signifying, imitating him. And it wasn't until they was able to laugh at Ike that she was able to say, I'm in trouble. And when she said she was in trouble, no pun intended, no diss to the police officers, but did she call the police or did she get her PPO? What did she do? Put her in front of a table and taught her how to chant. So it's about getting back to yourself. And if that's chanting, prayer, meditation, if that's walking, hula hooping, telling jokes, if that's storytelling, poetry, singing, if it's any of those things, we like to engage those things to make and help people usher in their own healing. And I'm a social worker by trade, and most of my facilitators are either trained very well, in addition to them also being LMSWs and counselors. So we're very deliberate about what we're doing, and we're also doing research and we need help. So thank you. I'm sorry for taking so long. I just want to explain that. Please come out on Friday at the Delta House, and we have the information. So I thank you all so much, and thank you for fundraising for South Center this year. Appreciate it.
So look, you all, we are gonna have 2 final things, and so while Ms. Audrey Kubak comes up, we're gonna explain our closing piece. So I'm gonna give that to Ms. Jamie. Oh, and can we please give it one more time for Kalima Johnson for coming? The idea of how supporters support. When we hear about things like this, normally, if it immediately affects us, we're there. Our job or our responsibility is to reach out to somebody who we don't even think it affects, because it probably affects them, they just ain't talking about it. All right, so things like this that happen, especially during this month, let's make it loud.
So I wanted to say, if you guys, you should have seen something like this when you sat down and had a safety pin. And I know some of you safety pin them to yourselves. What we want to do is we want to reinforce the fact that we are a community. These are written by supporters. These are written by survivors. These are written for survivors. We would like to safety pin, take a safety pin. If you have one, because I don't know what happens if one of them might share. And we're going to pin them to the one next to us. We are a community, and we are reinforcing that we are a community. So you would take your piece and safety pin it to the person next to you until we have a strong new fabric, a new garment, and we are covering our brothers and our sisters. We are covering our brothers. So let's safety pin them to. We're going to safety pin to one another. Not to you, to one another, to each other's piece. We're going to make one fabric.
So we're gonna make like a robot of it.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's really cool. So you'll pass it on?
Pass it on. We're just gonna take it together.
I know, I thought. Well, I know you.
All right, so
I
as I
for
go
time,
on,
so.
please show love to Audrey Kuba as you're pinning.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if I should play this song, but I wrote this song. I am a survivor, and I wrote this song to kind of deal with things. And you're talking about using, people have all kinds of ways to share their stories. And so it's a little emotional, and I hope it's not too triggering for anybody. It definitely always triggers me, but I wrote it as a part of my healing. So I hope that you will enjoy it. It's called "You Can't Come Around No More." I like it already. You can't come around no more. No feeling welcome here. If you see him where you touch so, please try so for me. So won't you take my hand and I'll take you to the place so you can understand why it's so hard to explain. 'Cause when you have me down, sorry. When you have me down, I could barely breathe. Or I don't know. I don't know if I can. Let me just. Sorry about that. Lord, you take my hand and I'll take you to a place so you can understand why it's so hard to explain. It's when you held me back, when you brought me to my knees, his hands across my face, and I could barely breathe. So I felt my head and I prayed, oh yes I prayed. No, he can't come around no more. No, he ain't welcome here. If you see him, will you tell him so? Please tell him so for me. It's been so many years since the wound within me screamed, but I cannot unsee his broken heart on. 'Cause when he held me down, the person that I was, I lost a little piece that I cannot find. I can't be apart. You can't come around no more. No, he ain't welcome here. If you see him, will you tell him so? Please tell him so for me. And I don't want you to see that I'm strong, I'm brave. And I don't want you going feeling sorry for me. And I don't need no distractions from the pain. Just gotta stop happening. Stop happening. So if you think you know him, or someone just to share, Write his name for me on the walls for all to see. And if you are him, well, you know what you have done. And yes, this song's about you. Now wear like a sign, like I wear mine. No, you ain't on mine no more. No, you ain't welcome here. If I see you, I will tell you so. I'll tell you so. I will tell you so for sure. I will tell you so for real. It's usually better. Like I'm a little bit nervous about singing it. I haven't really, actually, I haven't sang it since I wrote it because it's so hard to sing. Please give it up for Audrey Kubat one more time.
I think that as many songs that speak to race culture, there's not enough songs that give room for us to heal. And so I would love and encourage you, you know, as often as you can, when you feel it's appropriate to push through and to be brave, you know, because just that, he can't come around here no more. It's just something that feels safe. If that, I don't want to use that word in a cliche way.
Well, it's really about, especially that last part is like, if you know somebody like this, like you might not know the person that did this to me, but you might know somebody, and so we have to say like, no, you can't be in the community right now. You need to go and heal yourself. But so we need to call each other out when these things are happening. And yeah, I mean, there aren't a lot of songs that actually kind of say those things, but I felt like for me it was really important to really like have it be visual too, and like these are the things that physically happen, and then these are the things that can mentally happen. But thank you for listening. Yeah, I'm sorry I messed up. No, you're fine.
So I don't want to take up too much time, but I did want to say something to the song that she shared. If you were at the very first Denim Day, we did panels. If you were you at the first Denim Day? Yeah, great. We did panels, and what we had a survivor panel, and I sat on it. My mother sat on it, and a few other people. But it was based off of we put out an issue. It was a March-April issue of Pure Magazine. And it was both for Women's Month as well as for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And one of the things that we talked about one of the things that came up for me personally as I was compiling the entire issue, and as I was talking to my mother about we were talking about our articles, and I was saying one of the things that tormented me was I would have these flashbacks or I get stuck. And I know a lot of survivors do, and we can't tell the story. But my mother gave me a really great gift, and I wanted to give it to you. As I was telling her, as we were talking about it, and I got stuck, she said, well, what about what happened next? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And so she filled in the rest of the story for me. I was there. I couldn't remember it because my mind got stuck on the trauma. I never made it to the fact that I made it out of the trauma. And a lot of times it's re-traumatizing because we never make it to the rest of the story. But you are here because the story, that trauma isn't, you walked out of it. Somehow, some way, and if you don't remember how it ended, find someone who can tell you. Try to find something that can remind you. Don't let your memory trick you and make you get stuck in that moment. Find the rest of the story. It is there because you are here. And that is where your freedom is going to be. And I never had a flashback since.
Wow. Everybody, we're finding the rest of our story. I didn't think that this night was possible. Everybody came together because we think that we're important enough. I can't think. I went to a Dear Black Women affirmation group, and I have been planning. I've been crazy, and this event means so much to me. I just feel like it's important that people who are bullied and silenced are heard. And I was like, man, I need a space for it to happen. Immediately, she reached out to Urban Consulate. Urban Consulate said, of course, and yes. And so many other people who said, of course, and yes. So I thank you all for just taking time out of your schedule to saying, of course, and yes. I think the Sasha Center, they are very prominent. I respect you so much, Kalima. You did not have to say yes to my, like, this has to happen. Please let us raise money for your organization. Like, no, you know, it was a conversation with Piper, what, Sunday? That was like, stop being scared, let it be what it's gonna be and reach out and make this happen. And so just thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. We were able to raise $130 for the Sasha Center.
This is why Sasha Center being this little envelope. We're gonna have you stick that right in there. On the tray. So, thank you. And let me tell y'all what this is going to do for us. The funding that we do have in the state of Michigan does not allow us to buy food or snacks or anything like that for our groups. And we're going to use this money to make sure that when we have group, at least we can have something to snack on.
So now $151.
I'll make sure you get your letter.
Can I see that string of our string of encouraging messages? Can we, I guess, Consuela, can you bring it over? Can we just hold it up? Thank you, everybody. We don't look like what we've been through. Let's get to the next moment of our story.
And if you want to, there are other pieces that you can write messages, encouraging messages as well in the absence with your own words of support.
So if we could give it up for DJ Equad, who was a man who supported. Give it up for all the men who came out. Please give it up to Wayne County State. Yes. Please give it out to Melissa. Please give it out to Sergeant Ballard. I'm gonna get it. I promise. So we found Hip Hop Urban Consulate, and to you all, thank you so much. And this is us together, and it goes really long. And and it'll take all of us to hold each other up. So let's keep holding each other up. Thank you for all the work that we do every day. And we get a little closer every day to living how we should live and being how we should be. So a pure movement loves you. Thank you guys. I love you. Anything else? Great job. And all the artists, thank you, artists.
And don't forget, you can add to it by writing your own messages. Please write your own
You don't like my finger.
Yeah, so if we make sex taboo, like if that was really we're talking about, like, we're not even allowed to be sexual. Like, are we gonna throw around these other things? Don't allow it. Right now, you know, it's just like. Where's the military?
Yeah, man. I gotta get back now. I go outside on my screen. I don't know what's going on. I'm not reading tonight. All right. Well, y'all can't remember when I came in. Wait. Okay, wait. If you don't focus, all right. Dang, you know, all right. I got one. Hey, I can talk. Yeah. All right, there we go. Cool. All right. Okay, let me make sure you write it from. Oh my goodness, life is hard without a charge phone. Ah, we were swinging. Now, one of my homies. Yeah. We were swinging. I thought it was so hard. I gave you one. You're swinging.
hear you. I want to hear you. So you're playing day summer. Where? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Old school. Oh, the girls. Yeah. They still do summer like first Wednesday and every month. And then you should text me back and say, hey, I'll let you know information about that. So if I hear anything. I don't know. I was so in Ann Arbor. But then they hold your space for them. It's not open to anyone, but I got a show. I'm playing July. For a real show. It's partly because it is. So it's partly because I started working on the stages. You can literally bring, like I said, you bring other songwriters. You can go like have a couple of songwriters. Guitar, that'd be really pretty. Oh. Thank you.
You're very welcome.